That Wildest Dreams thing. Oh my gosh.
I can't stop thinking about it.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. That is insane. Like so special.
Man.
What a
Yeah.
special moment. Like, oh my gosh.
Hey there, welcome to the Winx Forever podcast. I'm Lola, creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan. I'm taking a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, like myself, or you vaguely remember it from your childhood, or even if you're being introduced to it for the first time, I want to say welcome. This is the Winx Forever podcast. Hello, fairies! Welcome back to the season 2 rewatch of Fate the Winx Saga here on the Winx Forever podcast. I am your host, Lola Valentine.
And I am your guest host, Just Dane Dane.
So we are back together with another deep dive of Fate season 2, this time with episode 2. Dane, do you want to catch up our listeners on what happened last episode?
I would love to. Oh my gosh, last episode, there was so much to talk about here. But in summary, it's like a new term back at Althea. All the girls are kind of settling in under Rosalind's new regime, and pretty much everybody's settling in.
Yeah.
Silva, is obviously in jail, and so they go to break him out. And there's a lot of conflict between like Sky not really knowing who Silva and kind of his dad really was his whole life, right? And now it's like he has to process like, oh, I've been lied to all these years about both situations. So yeah, it's just a lot of that. There's a lot of action. It's a lot to get into, but it sets the groundwork up for this season with the missing fairies and like yeah, just everything going on at Althea, all the mysterious stuff.
Totally. And I'm super excited to get into this episode. Season 2, episode 2. It's really funny because I mentioned to you before we started recording, like I felt like I didn't have as many notes on this episode just because like to me like the episode was very slow. Like it felt like there was just like a lot of setup for like maybe the next episode in this episode. So I'm excited to like talk about it with you because like for me like this episode was like so slow.
Yeah, it definitely sets up for like all the groundwork of what's going to happen in like
Mhm.
the next episode and pretty much for the rest of the entire season. Like this episode
Yeah.
is like it's the second time we've seen everybody back at Althea, so it's like it's a huge how do I say it? It's a huge foundational layer for the way the story is going to progress. And there's a lot of
Yes.
things that we're going to find out here that might not even turn out to be like the reality of what happens later.
Woo!
So
Spoilers. Yes, crazy. I know it's there's a lot of that and a lot of groundwork. So, and speaking of groundwork, we've got a lot to cover. So, let's start with the synopsis of this episode. So, a new student, arrives and surprises Tara, who's investigating what happened to Devon, which she wasn't really investigating. She was like gathering like ingredients to help what happened with Devon. And Bloom learns more about Sky's childhood when they leave campus. Ooh, intrigue.
yeah.
So let's get into it kind of scene by scene. So the episode opens to Tara in the forest outside of Althea, presumably gathering herbs for this like healing tonic for the Mind Fairy student Devon, who, as we know, is in like a critical condition after appearing at the end of the previous episode. When it appears that Tara could possibly be in danger as she's alone. She's like freaking alone in the woods, and like she what first of all, like how does she get out here? Isn't there like a barrier like around Althea? Like okay. um but she turns around, she's like ready with like her vines and stuff, but then like these flowers start to appear on her vines, and lo and behold, it is her cousin Flora here to surprise her. Tara takes Flora immediately to the Wink Suite to introduce her to all of her friends as they all are kind of speculating what happened to Devon. And of course, there are only um a few number of dorm rooms in this suite. Uh one of which was Stella's room, but now she's like pretty perturbed as like she has to share a room now with Flora in the suite, which like I have so many questions. Like, first of all, Flora's just like showing up unannounced. Oh, wait, no,
Mhm.
even before that, way before that. This is like I like this opening. It's really good like opening because it's like, ooh, what are we doing? What is it? It was also like one of the teaser. The scene was one of the teasers for the
Yeah.
season, so we've all kind of been like pre-exposed to the scene before it showed up in the season. But like, how did Flora even know Tara was there? Like, how does she know where she was? Oh, you
Oh,
got a it looks like you got
I've
a
got
theory?
a really good theory about this. So it will come up later in the episode, so I will save it for that moment, but it
All
will all
right.
click, I promise.
Ooh.
There is a theory that I have, and it fits a lot with what Flora says to Tara later in the episode. And
Ooh.
it's just one of those things that like you really got to think about it, and then it like
Mhm.
it all makes sense. But the episode's also so fast too. Like it's slow
Yeah.
because there's so much happening, but there's also a lot happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's there is a theory though as to like
Mm.
where she came from, and like why she's out there, and it does make sense, but I'll give it to
All
you
right.
in a little bit.
All
But
right. All right.
I love this scene though. Like when she does show up, like I'm so glad that they used that to really tease season two, because I feel
Mhm.
like, we kind of see some of the back and forth with like her and Sam on the phone, and like
Yeah.
Sam is just like, oh, you're not more convincing than Rosalind. And she's like, Tara's like trying to like advocate for what she's doing out there,
Mhm.
getting involved, I guess. And yeah, it's just like it's a really good scene because you can kind of see their sibling dynamic, which we kind of saw in episode one, outside the
Yes.
staircase with the guard. And then this time you also hear Tara say, like, oh, you need to lay off like dad, like he's trying his
Mhm.
hardest, and I think that's such an important thing to recognize, because Sam is also not in a regular emotional state anymore.
Yeah.
Musa has
Yeah.
been manipulating his mind for some time now. So he's a
Mm.
little, overwhelmed.
Yeah, which like I love that too, like that aspect of like their relationship in this episode, because last season Sam was to Musa as what Musa's trying to be for Sam this season. She said that
Yes,
he was
yes.
the absence of chaos, and like it that's like great and all, but like she's and I do think that she's like trying to come at it with like the purest of intentions,
Mhm.
because if she doesn't like feeling her emotions, like of course, like, someone else would love to like take that like, away, but oh my
Right.
gosh, it's just absolutely like the parallels there is really nice.
And then it's also like it addresses the fact that, she's young, trying to learn how to use her magic, and she's
Yeah.
still not really sure like what will work best. So, trial and error is how you learn. And
Mhm.
this is one of those instances. So, but I love that moment between them, especially because I feel like
Mhm.
it really shows us their dynamic as like Harveys, because they still get along regardless, which
Yeah.
is also so important. And it comes up later as well. But just like the Harvey dynamic, mm, so good. But
So freaking good.
I love the moment that right before Flora, like the moment right before Flora shows up, when we hear
Mhm.
the twig snap, when you see Flora's alertness, they use a sound effect to like really like drive the point home that like, oh, she's alert all of a sudden. And
Yeah.
then she turns around. I love the way they build suspense with that. And I think it really does go to say like, when it comes to fate, like they really use the music and the sound effects as
Mhm.
like an omnipresent kind of like character that adds to the scene and
Yes.
reacts to what's going on. And I love that so much. And I hope that future Winx projects adapt that a little bit more, because we don't really see that as much in the animated series. So
We kind of see it in the 4 Kids dub,
yeah, well,
but
they're good. They're the exception. Like, 'cause they get to work from the ground up, like
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's so
makes
true.
total sense. But yeah, it was nice. Um,
Yeah.
going back to Flora too, on your first like watch of the series,
Yeah.
did you like pick up on the fact that her like parents were horticultural researchers?
Yes.
I looked it up because I really wanted to know like what is like horticultural research by
Yeah.
definition. And it's so different than just like being a typical gardener, kind of like what the other Harveys are a little bit more accustomed to in the greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
She's like all about the science behind like maximizing, plant growth and nutrient
Yeah.
density, increasing yield. It's all about like overall improvement towards like quality of life for a plant and even
Yeah.
identifying them, which
Oh.
makes so much sense because when we see Flora's parents in the sixth episode of season
Mm-hmm.
7, um, like Flora's mom is at a greenhouse, right? Like their house is like built into like a house, and Flora's talking about like, oh, just wait till you see the greenhouse girls to like the other Winx.
Yeah.
And then she also made a comment about how her mom knows every flower in the magic dimension. Like,
Yes.
I'm just like, okay,
Oh.
so they really went back and like expanded on that, especially with the fact that we see all these potions and stuff, like doctoring, like the magic
Mm-hmm.
wolves and whatnot. Like they had all this set up around that area. I'm just like, this is such a good way to adapt that into a backstory. Like I was so happy
Yes.
to see that.
I know. And it's funny too because in the original series, with the exception of like them visiting Lymphaea and meeting her mom, like we still don't get a lot
Mhm.
of backstory on Flora, even though it is like Eugenia Straffy's favorite character of the Winx Club.
Right?
And so it's really funny that we don't get that backstory, but then here in Fate, they were able to, like you said, pull those elements of that and give her that backstory of like this is where she came from. And it's like I do love that a lot.
Same. I was just like, I was so thrilled to see that as well. And then like I
Mhm.
did notice that Aisha made a comment like, isn't it like kind of weird that she transferred mid-year? Or like it's weird that she transferred mid-year. And then and then Tara was like, oh, Flora's weird like that. She just kind of does her own thing, which makes sense as being like a horticultural researcher. So
Yeah, she's kind of woo woo, but like at the
mhm.
same time, I'm just like, no, like that's like I get that like Professor Harvey is like your uncle or whatever, but
Yeah,
at the same time, like, girl, we don't even got like a room for you. Like, you just showed up
right.
out of nowhere. Like,
So
what is the admissions process like at Althea? Like, can anyone just like pop in? Like, where's the background checks? Where's the applications? Like,
right.
what is the time like line of this process?
And that is a good thing to note too, because I feel like for a lot of us, we see that and we're like, oh, that seems like a little like kind of like a plot hole or something, or not good writing.
Yeah.
But if you think
Mm.
about it, Bloom said last episode that we should listen to Aisha because she's usually right, like when they were on the
Yep.
field. And there is an explanation too when Flora kind of shows up to Althea that like we even don't like fully understand until the next episode after this,
Yes.
but yeah, there's a reason. It will
Woo!
be addressed. So
Yes. I love that. I love it.
there was a lot of attention to the bite marks on Devon's chest, and like even Tara mentioned out in the field that she wanted to figure out like what they were. And then there was some
Hmm.
back and forth between like when they were letting all the girls in on like the 411 and the suite and what was
Yeah.
going on. Tara and Bloom kind of had a little bit of an exchange, a little tension regarding like, oh, it's not fully the case that like we don't know what happened. We know very well that like you
Right.
know things are a little weird now and that like Rosalind's here. So um but yeah, there's some good groundwork being laid here for the
Ugh.
rest of this.
Yes, no, absolutely. I also love how easily Flora is just like clicking with the whole group. And like
Right.
I know that it is, going to cause some like friction between her and Tara later because
Hmm.
of like how well she is just like able to like osmosis her way into this group. So she just like kind of like is just that kind of personality, whereas like for Tara, like she like tries very hard for people to like accept and like her, and like that is
Hmm.
also probably like because of some other underlying like issues that we find out
Yeah.
later on in the season, but like also it's just so funny to me that everyone seems to click with her except for the one person that obviously has to share a room with her. Like she's just like also like in general, Stella is very e- even though she's like definitely opened up a lot more to the rest of the Wink suite in this season, she is
Hmm.
still very reserved and very much like in her own space this season as well. Not as much as she was last season, but like still there's a lot of like we don't get a lot of the Stella and the other girls interacting as much as I wanted there to be.
Yeah.
I thought we were all gonna be besties and it's gonna be great, but like that's okay.
She was doing great before she got the little gem in her back.
That's
So
actually such a good point, and she's probably that's probably like so embarrassing. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that's actually yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released. Hey fairy friends, Lola Valentine here. In case you missed it, the Winx Forever podcast launched our very own Discord community. Discord has been a great place to connect with so many wonderful Winxers from around the world to talk about our favorite fairies. I wanted to try and recreate the magic of the original Winx Club online English forums from the old WinxClub.com website. So we've got forums where you can post your own topics and respond to others' posts in every Winx topic imaginable. Click the invite link in the description below to join the Winx Forever podcast Discord community. And remember, the magic's in you. Oh, and then speaking of like Stella and Flora, when Flora's like, "You'll barely notice me. I can be invisible," and then
yes, Stella's
Stella's
face.
face.
Oh my gosh.
It's just speaking of the gym,
Oh
like
my
that's
gosh.
just sucks. That sucks so much because
Right?
Flora, she doesn't even know. Like, it's just oh
No
my
idea.
gosh.
Divine timing. It's fate.
I
Like
know. I know. Oh my gosh. I didn't even notice it until like this rewatch too that she said that, and then like why Flora was so. I thought she was just as disgusted because the thought of sharing a room because she's a princess, but no, it's like no, this girl's got like a device on her back that can't make her like use her invisibility magic. Like it's like stakes are high this season, and it's
yeah,
crazy.
for real.
Oh. So in Rosalind's office, right, her and Andreas are talking, and Rosalind is kind of like using her magic on him to try to squeeze out any information about Saul Silva's escape. And when Beatrix sees this, she kind of like comes to his, is this real? Is this correct?
Yeah, so Beatrix is in like the other room of the
That's
office,
right.
and she's using the portal to like get she has like a portal in front of her where she's listening in. So
Yes.
air fairy.
Yeah, that's
Like
right. And then so she right. And so she goes like kind of to his rescue by telling Rosalind that, like no, Silva must have escaped like he with help. Like he's, like there's no way that he didn't not have help. And Rosalind, of course, like she is never impressed by anything, but she also is
mm-mm.
just like you don't think that I wouldn't have figured that out by now. Like, but thank you
Yeah.
so much. Like she's so mean to Beatrix when like she is the
Hmm.
reason that Bloom even like broke her out in the first place.
Exactly. Like,
Like she is terrible to Beatrix and I feel so bad for her.
and I think that her behavior towards Beatrix is really telling of what Rosalind's underlying intentions are for what she
Mhm.
really wants to do. Because if she doesn't see Beatrix as useful, but she sees Bloom as useful, we have to think
Oof.
about what she's really after here. You know what I mean? Like,
Power.
yep.
Yep. That is for real though. Um yeah, it's a lot. This scene is just so sad to me because like then Bloom walks in, and Beatrix turns around and just Beatrix's face as she sees
Oh
Bloom
my
and
gosh.
Rosalind together. Like, it's just like if looks could kill, like
Yeah,
they'd
she was
both
just
be dead.
right. She's in her flop era at that moment. She's just like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me.
Mhm.
Like here I am trying to do everything and she just has it. Like what
It's
am I
so
doing
sad.
wrong, you know? So,
Yeah.
and then I think it's also really telling to of kind of what happens a little bit later in the episode with, you know, we really see the power structure between Rosalind and Andreas being, what Silva
Mhm.
said last episode, like his little, or Rosalind's little helper or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what he said. Errand boy. That's what he said. Like,
Aaron boy,
yeah.
yes.
So, um, but like we can see how much Beatrix cares about her dad. Like she is
Mhm.
just like, oh, I'm, spying in. I could tell something's up. Let me go in there. And then of course it blows up in her face. But
Mhm. Gosh. It's so sad. And
yeah,
I just really feel for her because like she spent all this time with Andreas and now it's almost like he's not embarrassed by her but a little bit, which is
yeah.
so
He's
it's
too
like
busy
sad.
now. Yeah. The
Yeah.
adjustment is like so different. So
Mm. Yeah, very sad. So then we get a shot of the infirmary slash greenhouse. The double combo, there of the infirmary and greenhouse, where we see Tara and Kat together. Kat is, of course, the female specialist that we saw a little bit of last season. And of course, there's a lot to talk about this
oh
character, but
yeah.
we'll get into it. We'll get into it. So Tara and Kat, are in this, the greenhouse slash infirmary. Tara is wrapping up Kat's bandages, as well as like having some kind of like cute, awkward, like flirty back and forth. When like Kat just kind of like blurts out like her and her partner had broken up, and that was kind of like an information drop for Tara. 'Cause she's like, oh, like I'm sorry to hear that, and like it's just very like awkward and clunky, but like very much like Flora. Yeah, not Flora, very much like Tara, very much like it's just her whole vibe was that whole scene,
Yeah.
honestly.
I love how they're having such a good like conversation and that's what she sprinkles in because then it's like she can kind
Mhm.
of tell too,
Yeah.
like yeah, the
There
gator
might
was
be
working
something
with
there.
like yeah. So,
Yes,
and I love
yeah.
that because it shows that like, Kat is like, "Oh my gosh, this is so healthy." Like, by the way,
Yeah.
like but
This little information.
interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people didn't even know that Kat was, a lesbian specialist. Nobody had any
Yes.
idea. Like, and the
Yeah.
reason why is because in last season, they actually cut out well, I don't say everything, but almost all of Kat's character arc,
Mhm.
like entirely. Like in episode 3, if you look at the credits, you can see that there is Kat and Kat's girlfriend credited.
Mhm.
And so there was supposed to be a lot more. And I had talked to somebody who worked on the set. They said that there was a scene where Bloom was supposed to walk in, like it's when she leaves beer pong or like to go outside or something. There's a
Yeah.
scene where Bloom was supposed to run into Kat and her girlfriend in the hallway. And then I guess Kat and her girlfriend were supposed to get into a fight and she was going to go kiss another girl. And
Yeah.
there's supposed to be a whole arc for her. And from what it sounds like, everybody on that set loved Kat. Like they said that like she
Yes.
was like the leader of the specialists and like everybody would have loved her, but gone from the final edit, at least like almost entirely. We see a little bit of we see a little bit of Kat and Tara in season 1 where it's like when Tara's on the bench talking to Ribbon about, Dane,
Yeah.
and like she gets a little bit awkward at the thought of like maybe, the wheels are turning, like, oh, maybe
Mhm.
maybe I'm a little gay or something like that.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
but Kat compliments Tara's vine strength and like what she's doing during
Mhm.
training. And so it's very brief, but then there's also a scene in the very last episode where they kind of run off to, I think they were going to go look for like first aid or something. We don't see
Yeah.
much of it, but it's just a very brief shot before she's pulled away. by Harvey to, come take care of Sam. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and I guess to really add on to that, there was an exchange between Elliot Salt and Leah Minto, who are the actresses for Tara and
Mm-hmm.
Kat on Instagram, and they talked about how like they're they were hoping for more, Kara moments in season two.
Yes.
And there was something about like Kimye, I think was like a cat and maybe another character that we didn't see, I
Yes.
guess. And I guess there was a scary hologram incident that didn't make it in for that other character or something. So who knows?
Man,
But yeah, so it seems like just a lot was really cut there, and that's why it's so jarring to a lot of
disjointed.
people. Yeah, who's
Yeah, yeah.
Francesca? Like,
Right. Yes, and like it's very funny that like we like of course like we know all of this because
mhm,
like we really enjoyed the show, but like the casuals that like or even the people that hated Fate, like there was going to be so much to this show and then it just like got ripped out from under us and then we were just
mhm,
like what the hell.
yeah,
Like this is why we're all so upset. This is why like there's layers to this.
mhm,
So we've been in it.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And that's
man.
that's like the saddest thing. Well, not the saddest thing. It's one of the
Mm.
most sad things I would say. Like one of my personal grievances is that they just did not have enough time for all of
No.
these characters. Like I would have loved to have seen Kat's character. So
Yes, we need a strong female specialist like
yes.
character arc. Like we do. Like I'm so tired of like I know that the guys are in the show for a reason. Like I'm glad
Hmm.
that it is like a co-ed show like that. Like Winx Club has always been, but like it was so funny because Anthony Salerno, the voice director of the Four Kids dub, had mentioned to me of like how like oh the guys like probably don't even remember like that they were even on the show, the people that voiced the specialists. And he's like because they were like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and stuff like whatever. He's like they but like the guys were kind of just there for like to give like the Winx Club like something like to like interact with or something to do, like it was just like
Hmm.
like they were like an accessory.
Yes.
Whereas like, in Fate, like I think that they did try to give us like more depth to those characters kind of, but it
They
was
actually,
still
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but like it still would have been because we've all for years been like crying for female specialists and then we get one and we
Hmm.
don't know anything about her and it's really sad.
And it is, yeah, it is so sad. And I felt so bad just for like outside the show too, like because
Mhm.
Leah actually was like on a like top list to watch. Like she was added to this list to
Oh
watch over in Ireland.
yeah.
And everybody was so excited for her. Everybody was so excited for her. And it was just like so sad that we didn't get to see,
Hmm.
the full grasp of the character and like what she was bringing to the
I
show until
wonder,
season two.
do you think that they get told beforehand like
If
that
they
their
get
stuff has
cut.
been cut? Yeah.
No. No,
Really?
yeah, no, I've heard from other people, sometimes maybe, but for the most part, like I've seen like some TikToks of other actors who
Ugh,
are like, when, I got cut without anybody telling me, like it does happen, unfortunately. So, but
that
she would
is
have been such
crazy.
great representation too. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Ugh, yeah, but instead, yeah, anyway. Well, there will be plenty of time to discuss more about Kat, but but yeah, so Kat like kind of like notices that Riven is I don't know if pestering is the right word, like, but just hanging around Flora, trying to
Yeah,
make small talk, whatever. And so Tara goes to kind of like rescue Flora on the account of like Kat cluing her in or like alerting her to like what was happening behind her
which is so
in the
thoughtful, by the way.
greenhouse.
Like,
It's what?
it's so thoughtful that Kat's
Oh,
like, oh,
yes.
your cousin needs a save. And then,
Yeah.
Tara's like, oh, take this briefcase to the Bastion. And then, like, when he doesn't leave right away, of course, Kat comes over and she's like, leave the girl alone and just directs him out. Like,
Yes,
I love
yes.
that.
I do
So,
too. I think it's really sweet. Oh my goodness. So then like Tara's kind of getting back to work after they both leave and she notices that Flora had a rearranged like all of their supplies, which like I think is a little like I get that Flora was trying to help, but it is a little like misstep, you know? Like that's an overstep on Flora's part.
Yeah, and like I that's kind of where I saw it too, because like she's, obviously with her background as like the horticultural researcher,
Mhm.
she's like, "Oh, well, these are the most like we got to put them on this shelf so it's like at their peak potency," and that's why she's doing it.
Mhm.
But she does her own thing. We kind of saw that from like the whole ribbon thing and what Tara
Yes.
said previously. And that really does, go into Flora as a character. She really does her own thing, but it's rooted in like a natural kindness. Like I don't think it's
Yes.
yeah, I don't think it's like selfish or anything like that where she's like coming
No.
from with what she does. I think it's for the greater good because she knows
Mhm.
like what like she knows how to really make something like in its peak prime efficiency. So she's like
Yes.
that's all she's trying to do. But of
Mhm.
course you can see Tara getting like a little even Professor Harvey's like, oh, I wouldn't have moved that over to that shelf. Like,
Yes.
so yeah, but she's just coming in, bringing a little bit of change, and Tara's kind of getting a little bit insecure about it. Like, oh, she's so good. Like, what she does. You can kind of see in their interaction, especially when she's like, oh, and by the way, please don't move anything else. Like,
Yes.
yeah, you can tell she's
Ugh.
getting a little bit on edge with Flora.
Mhm. And it's kind of a little bit like in the original series where like Flora is well in the Four Kids dub, she is like trying to come up with like a potion to like protect them from the witches
Hmm.
because they've had so many run-ins with like these witches from Cloud Tower, which they don't even know why at that point. And so like Flora's just trying to like help, and like in the process is like making all of her roommates mad, and so like that is
Yes.
giving like very much season one Flora vibes. Like I can totally see like Flora like just like thinking that she's helping us, like, but maybe like don't like touch anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
Yeah.
like Tara definitely to me, I think she's kind of like a combination of like Flora and Tecna. And so there were definitely
Mhm.
some moments in season one where I was like, this I'm seeing where these personalities are being like brought in, to like kind of create
Yes.
this character. And it also is very telling that there's no Tecna in season one of Fate either. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
It's
definitely intentional, but not that I
right.
agree with it, I don't. But like,
Right.
yeah.
It was intentional, but like at the same time, I think that it's a void that like is obvious, that is obvious to the show. Like it's
Yeah, for
something that
sure.
like we definitely could have used in this world, but I digress. So we get a brief scene of Riven and Sky outside in the specialist training like facilities. And they're like talking about their relationships, right? Like, and Riven is teasing Sky about, not having sex with Bloom yet and that whole thing. And then Sky like catches a glimpse of like Andreas as he walks up, and so then he like goes and tries to like show off for Andreas, which is
Yes,
like
yes.
so cringe. This
Oh,
poor
like
little boy just wants attention from his dad so bad.
daddy
And he's
issues,
like
yeah.
truly, he's got daddy issues both ways with his adoptive and
Hmm.
his bio. It's like terrible.
Just
It's
awful.
so bad.
Not surprised he drinks, like
Jeez. And of course, Andreas barely takes notice before going off to shove Dane in the distance. But then another back and forth between Riven and Sky, again about the relationships and how like if they want the room later this afternoon. That is to me is so funny, especially considering like what happens later in this episode.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like I wonder if like that like this conversation led to that. I wonder if that is a little bit like Sky feels inadequate in literally every way right now. Is like, was that like just like the tipping point for him to be like, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what?
Here,
In my
take a
childhood
room.
bedroom,
Yeah.
let's go.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
no. Yeah, but it's funny to me seeing a dynamic of Riven and Sky being quote unquote best friends,
Yeah, they get along way
because
more in this.
yes, because I think that it's so funny, whereas like in the original series, Sky and Riven are very much rivals, especially
Hmm.
in the first couple of seasons, especially in the first season for sure.
Yeah.
Like Riven just wants to one up Sky and everything. Like they are constantly fighting, like literally like swords and fist fights. And
Yes.
and like it was funny to me in the last episode of Fate, like seeing Sky like just square punch Dane in the face, because I
Hmm.
was like, it was just as jarring as like the punch scene in season 1 of Winx Club. It was just as jarring for me because I didn't see either of them coming.
Right. But it
Like,
also makes sense because Dane is the way he is because of Riven in season one. And we did even see Sky and Riven in season one when they were outside.
yeah.
I think they abandoned East Wing or something. And
Mm-hmm.
Riven's like, why do you always have to think you're better than me or something? Like there's some back
Yeah.
and forth and they clash quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember one instance where Sky was telling Riven, that's an order, Riven. Like when they were like outside at the very
Mm-hmm.
last episode with like the burned ones in the forest and all that. They were on like patrol.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they kind of shifted it to like now it's like Sky versus Dane, which I guess
Mm-hmm.
is kind of nice because it allows these like fun little scenes with Sky and Riven where we get to see their personalities.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And like how different they are, but like, I mean, I would assume like they had grown up together to, to some degree, and like
yeah,
I just think that it's funny the differences of the characters between Fate and Winx Club, but also weirdly the similarities. I don't know.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
just the adaptation part of it, it really comes
Hmm.
through in that sense. So,
Yeah,
but I guess it's
totally.
nice that we don't see the same story twice. Like,
Oh, shout out Winx Club reboot.
yeah, I'm scared.
I say.
But
If you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow the show on your preferred streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released.
we're at the next scene. In Rosalind's office, Bloom is reading a history book on the other world, but when Rosalind steps out for a brief moment, Bloom seizes the opportunity to snoop through her office. She stumbles upon a leather-bound book filled with strange symbols, including a diagram of the creature that attacked Devon. And so, just as she snaps some photos of the pages, she sees Rosalind return through the frosted glass
Mm-hmm.
door, and she like quickly puts the book away, right? Like she's just like,
Yeah.
still standing by her desk by the time she gets in there. She tries to divert
Bloom is so
attention.
dumb. Bloom is
Yes.
so dumb.
It's just like, could you have gone any slower with that girl? Like, this is an old desk. Like, but oh wow. She tries to she tries to divert attention, but Rosalind sees right through her act and confronts her about her snooping, questioning Bloom's trustworthiness. And I like
Mm-hmm.
this because this is like a really good repositioning of where Rosalind sees Bloom. She's
Yes.
now a little bit more skeptical because like previously Bloom was just feeding into everything she was doing, but not anymore. Like it's not going to work the same way. Sensing Bloom's discomfort, Rosalind
Mm-hmm.
mentions she's like, you wouldn't want to burn any bridges, Bloom, right? Like,
Mm.
and it's kind of like a hint at the whole thing that happened at the river bend with the burned down
Mm-hmm.
bridge, and you can see
She
Bloom's face. Yeah,
knows.
she
Mm-hmm.
knows. Because like Bloom gave it away with her reaction to that statement, those words.
Everything happens on Bloom's face. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything. This girl does not have a poker face to save her life.
The micro
Like
expressions, like
yes. And like
yes.
she, well, my thing is like in this season, 2, Bloom is like running around being like, I'm the fairy of the dragon flame. I can do
Hmm.
whatever I want. Like she's just like did like so like on her high horse about like
Yes.
transforming last year, and she thinks that she's like just like running this school or whatever, when it's like she is like not she is not what she thinks she is, like at
Right?
all. And it's so funny to me because it's like I don't know. And I know that they wrote it that way so that you would feel that way about Bloom. Like I know
Hmm.
that they did, but like still it just irks me. Like
Yeah.
they just made her that way, and so she's just like thinks that she is so bad against Rosalind, and like Rosalind's like, girl, please.
Yeah. And this right here really, like, I think this was a really bad chess move for Bloom because
Oh.
like it just left her filled with unanswered questions and
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, like leaving this lesson, you know?
Mm.
So, but we do have to talk about,
But the book that she was reading?
yes, we have to talk about the book that she was reading because she
Yes.
talked about how, like, when she was reading through the history book, the Company of Light rained hellfire on the Army of Darkness, and Marion summoned a shadow power from the deepest corners of darkness, and then it, like, you know, cuts off. But we learn that, like, there's something that comes up later in the season that was a product of Marion and might even
Mm-hmm.
explain why, like, Marion is where she is.
Ooh, I
So the
have
Winx fans know who that
chills.
is, but like,
Yes, I know. Yeah. So for Fate fans who maybe like haven't watched, which is even insane for me to like say like Fate fans that
mhm,
haven't watched Winx Club, but like there's so many
so many,
of
yeah.
them, which like in a way like I'm like I give props to Fate for like introducing Winx Club and the story of Winx Club to so many new fans. Like that is really incredible. But anyway, that aside, so for the Fate fans who had not seen Winx Club, the Company of Light was a band of these wizards and witches and fairies that were literally fighting like a whole army of darkness that was created, or I guess summoned, by a evil force known as the ancestral witches, and this is the force that destroyed Bloom's home planet of Domino. um so there's a lot to unpack here because of that, because the people in the Company of Light, the people that formed it, were Bloom's parents, Oratella and Marion. So like the fact that when she said Marion, like in the Company of Light, like when I first watched this, like I screamed, like I was just like absolutely losing my mind. I was
Right.
so happy. I was like, they got the lore.
Yeah, okay, right. That's exactly what I was thinking too. I was just like, okay, I
Yes.
kind of see what, you know, they might be building towards, but
Mm,
it didn't really hit me until the rewatch, like about her like summoning the shadow power, because I don't think we really
mm,
see that in the original in the same way. We see something,
mhm.
but and yeah, that'll be an interesting one to get into later.
I mean that's crazy to think that it might be because of Marion that she is like having to like spend eternity in the dark realm. Like,
Hmm.
oh my god. Anyway, oh my god.
Yeah.
There's so much.
In a brief phone call on a field at Althea, we see Bloom, Aisha, and Stella discussing their findings with Silva and Sebastian. Bloom concludes that Rosalind knows what attacked Devon and is hiding information. Silva suspects that the book came from the Royal Archives, which
Mhm.
didn't he say that last episode too? Like,
I He said that Rosalind had,
had
or
access.
yeah, had
Yeah.
access to
Okay,
it.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Sebastian offers to translate the book's unknown like language because I guess it's like a dead one. So, but it'll take some time. And so Bloom emphasizes the urgency, believing the book holds the key to Rosalind's plans. Sebastian then suggests a library book for translation, but Bloom reveals that Rosalind closed it, claiming to be weeding out propaganda. And then we get like a
Oh
really
god.
nice moment with Stella where she's like, always a good sign when leaders control access to books. Like, oh my gosh,
But for
that's
real
yes.
though.
When I heard
Oh
that, I
my
was like,
gosh.
this is why I love this show. This show really
Yes.
goes above and beyond with saying, like, this is a real issue and we're going to talk about it and we're going to put it in this universe and, like, here you go. Because it's so true. Like, that's the thing that
It
happens all the time.
is.
Book burning, especially like
Yes.
in states like Florida and like, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's really funny because it because in the previous episode, Saul did warn Bloom of like, don't get too close to Rosalind because soon, like, she'll just turn you into one of her little soldiers, like, just like, and you won't remember what normal was, you know?
yes.
And like that, like, quote unquote weeding out propaganda is probably like one of her steps of like doing that, which is super, that's just insane.
It's just evil. It's just the pure evil right there. Like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, she's
Ugh.
really power hungry. So,
Mhm.
Silva says he has a translation text at his house, prompting an awkward moment for Stella, who reveals like, "Oh, I've been there with Sky," and then Bloom's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah," like.
Right.
Bloom now dating Sky, suggests borrowing the Harvey's car to go and retrieve it. To which Silva agrees, and he says he'll draw out a route, paving the way for Bloom's mission.
Which like is so funny. It's so I have a lot of things to say about Saul Silva's house, but I'll save them for when we're actually at his house. But it's funny because we all know that they have smartphones in this universe. He couldn't have just texted her the address. He had to draw it out. It was just a segue. It was just a segue so that Andreas could see his map in Sebastian's store so
Yeah,
that like he could go burn down his house. Like I like that's the only reason that information was in the episode because we know that the smartphones exist. We know that they have a GPS in this world.
but
Like
also, I think he said to draw out a map because the Solarian Guard is everywhere, and so he has to come up with a new route in order to, as he knows the area, like, it's kind
oh.
of yeah. So
Okay, Dane.
that's no,
Okay. Yes.
I thought
No,
the
you're
same
right
thing.
though. You're
Yeah,
right though.
like, oh, I'm gonna draw it out and then I'll maybe text you a photo or something. But like, yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I would have just been like, yeah, send me the address.
Yeah.
But
No, that's such a good point though, because like the Solarian Guard do be out here and like they are like looking for him, like and
mhm.
like at any chance they get, like he's a fugitive. So I think that uh yeah, well I'll save
Yeah, and we also know the students really aren't supposed to leave the barrier. Like,
yeah.
they aren't really supposed to. They talk about it a little bit,
They
but
do it all the time.
yeah,
Also, yeah, anyway, okay.
yeah.
So in the medical bay, Tara is tending to an unconscious Devon, while Musa tries to enter his mind, but she can only sense pain, like nothing else. Um, Tara feels very defeated and also worried that they may never find out what attacked Devon. Um, and she she's kind of like desperate for a win for her family, and she even says so, like that, like waking Devon up would be like a big win for them. And their
Even
conversation
herself,
is
yeah.
yeah, yeah, truly, even her, even Tara. Their conversation is interrupted by Flora's arrival and also causing some subtle tension between her and Tara, which Musa, obviously being the mind fairy she is, picks up on.
Yes.
Like, of course she even like when Musa looks back, like her eyes are glowing, she's using her powers. Like she is reading the whole situation. Like
Yeah.
you can't put anything past her. Like, oh my gosh. Flora suggests Eldwin amalgam, but Tara is very dismissive and on edge and insists that they already tried Eldwin root. Um and Musa is at this point like really concerned because like Tara is not like the snippy unless something is wrong.
Mhm.
And so Musa asks, like, hey, like, are you like, are you sure everything's okay? Like
Yeah.
before they head out to class.
Like they're clearly different too. And Flora's over here saying like, oh, like this is Eldwin amalgam. And then,
Mm-hmm.
Tara's like, well, we've already tried it. And she goes, I didn't say Eldwin root. I said, but she said it so nicely
Yes.
too. She was like, oh, I meant like Eldwin amalgam and then, Tara's just like, uh, she kind of gets snippy. Yeah. She just gets really
Mm-hmm.
snippy about it. So
Yeah. It's
you can
it's
tell she's on
it's real.
edge.
Yeah, it's hard to see Tara like that too, because Tara is the bubbly one of the group.
Hmm.
And so like she's Tara's the friend that like she's the happy friend, but like it's really sad when the happy friend is not the happy friend. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that something's wrong. And also like happy friends are allowed to not be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
100%.
as well.
And I think too, like because Tara's so technical, like whether she's describing her backpack or talking about soil for 2 hours to
Mhm.
Stella, like
Yes.
um she's seeing her cousin show up and she's making this distinction, and then it has to be like oh, it's not
Mm.
the same thing, like, and then she gets kind of snippy about it. So
Yes.
she's feeling a
Yeah.
little bit like inadequate, I guess that'd be the best way to say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Insecure.
Absolutely. And yeah, so she's feeling insecure in a lot of different ways, ones that we don't even know about yet. So
Yeah.
we'll continue. In Andreas' search for Silva, he wanders into Sebastian's shop in Blackbridge. Sebastian manages to hide Silva just in time, which, like, why is he just out roaming about in the front of the shop anyway? Like, dude, like,
Right.
stay back there.
Yeah.
You yourself said that these guards are everywhere. You gotta stay back there, my guy. So, it, Silva was able to hide him in his secret lair in the back before Andreas like came in, and even though there was clearly nothing to see, Andreas took Sebastian's face and like smashed it into this display case that's in his store, and it just was so unnecessary. Like, I think that Andreas just like likes violence. I think
Yeah,
that he just like
he's
genuinely enjoys it, like,
he's a
which is
bully.
sick.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's a straight up
absolutely.
bully. And I think also because Sebastian's now on the other end of this, like in the last episode, we saw Sebastian really like examining Silva's face with all of what Andreas had done,
Hmm.
and like, everybody else involved too. But like now he's on the other end of it and he's
Yeah.
got a reason to be mad.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
so
And
he's out
like,
for blood. I'll say it like that. Like,
ooh, ooh. Ugh. Yes, though. Yes. So Andreas doesn't leave empty-handed from Sebastian's shop. He spots the vital information on the little piece of paper that Silva was scribbling on before having to like run into hiding, which is obviously going to provide some intel on like the potential location of Saul Silva. So, yeah, like I said, I felt like before, Dane has convinced me otherwise, but I felt like before that was just like a very unnecessary like scene. I understand how it is necessary now. I also thought that this scene happened way earlier. I thought this scene happened like last episode, which was
oh,
it was so
really?
funny rewatching it. I was like, what is happening? Like, didn't we already see this? But like I've just rewatched it so many times
Yeah,
that things start to like mush together.
blend together. I will say though, they shouldn't have been standing in the front of the shop. Like,
Yeah, like what are you
yeah,
doing?
like maybe they were overly confident that like, oh, we're not gonna get caught, but come on,
Maybe.
like, stay in the layer.
Amateur hour.
But we got to see the cool CGI when they entered the layer. Like, that was
Ooh,
cool.
yeah, that was neat. I really
Reminded me of
liked
like
it.
the portal that they used to like go to Earth, like in season one with the Solarian ring. Was
Yes.
so cool.
I know. Oh, wow. R.I.P. the Solarian ring.
Right. Easily forgotten again.
But
So
that might be one of the most like canonically like accurate things about things
yeah, honestly, like
is
when
that
we
they
both
also
found that.
forgot. They also forgot
Yes.
Stella has this really important portal ring. Oh my gosh. Which like I understand it works outside of the barrier. So like in like half of the season, like she couldn't go outside the barrier anyway. So
Mhm.
like that makes sense. But like, girl, I'm also sad. I'm also really sad that Mike and Vanessa are nowhere in this season.
I know. We
They were
don't
such a
see an
huge part of season one.
right? There's not a drop of them here. Like,
Oh, there is a picture of them on Bloom's nightstand.
okay. Yeah,
But
subtle,
besides
but
that, yeah, it's
yeah,
so sad. It's so sad. Like, well, I don't know. I'll save it. I'll save my comments till the end.
sounds good. Something to note too, when at the end of this scene, Sebastian does kind of clue like Silva in, like, hey, they're gonna figure out sooner or later this is like a secret
Mhm.
layer. Kind of like oh, you can't stay here forever, like it's clearly not safe. So
So where does Silva go? So where does Silva go?
we'll find out later.
The probably one place that's not any more safer.
The one place where he's not even welcome. Like,
Oh my
oh
god.
gosh, yeah.
So meanwhile, back on the ranch. No, meanwhile at Althea, we see Bloom and Sky just kind of hanging out on the lawn at Althea. And they're like having this little flirty back and forth. And they notice that like both of them are like very distracted like with what's going on. Like Sky's like Rosalind, Bloom's like yeah, she's like Andreas, he's like
Yeah.
yeah. And so um Bloom, just like drops the information of like, hey, like I've got to go to Silva's house. Like I've got to go to your house, Sky.
Hmm.
And he's like, all right, let's go. She's like, what? And so they literally just like, and I guess they didn't borrow the Harvey's car, which was interesting. They had like a specialist like Jeep that
Oh,
they drove
really?
down. Yeah, because the
A
Harvey's
joyride.
car, yeah,
Yeah.
truly, yeah. And I was like, how is this okay? Like, how is no one going to notice a full specialist Jeep like driving down this road? Like we get that like beautiful like establishing shot of like their journey to his house, and it's like all those windy roads in Ireland, which like I feel like part of me wonders if like Brian Young chose Ireland just so that he could spend months at a time in Ireland.
Yeah, like a nice little vacation.
Like,
If so,
yes.
props to Brian because I would have done the same thing. Like, so magical. Like, every time I see the green in the background, I'm just like,
It's
oh my gosh.
yeah, it
I
is
know
like a
that rain smells so
lush.
good. Like,
Yes, like a lush, like just fairy world, like truly,
yeah.
like so pretty.
I do want to talk about that
Yes.
field moment because
Yes.
when they were on the field, I did notice that like there's a scene in Magical Adventure when
Mhm.
like Bloom's parents, both sets, are like watching a videotape and we see like Bloom and
Yeah.
Sky under a tree and they're just like,
Yes.
having a good time in Gardenia, of course. It's not the same, but like when
Mhm.
I saw them on the field, that's exactly what I thought of. I was like,
Yeah.
this is so
There's
cute.
there's a lot of that, like just little like subtle nods and hints to the original of like scenes. Like
Mm.
we even saw it in the first episode of Fate season 2. And like I feel like they get more and more. And we're about to like talk about a big one
Hmm.
too. But like it's really cute to see like the adaptations and like how they work in this universe. And like I appreciate the effort that they put into season 2 with all of the references that they have. Like
Hmm.
it's just such a step up from season 1. Like it
Like
really
there's so
really
much more
is.
fun to like what they're including,
Yes.
which is nice. It's nice to get a little bit of that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Um so then so they get to Silva's house slash Sky's house where Sky grew up, and Bloom is absolutely in awe. Like she's like, I've never seen this much field. Like I just want to frolic in the in the vastness of this field. And Sky's like, like, what's stopping you? Like, you go for it. Like, of course, go frolic. And so she goes and she frolics through this field, and it's just like so pure and magical. And she stumbles upon like these what she thinks are wild horses. And so this guy's like, come on, like let's go, like try to ride one. I know she asks like, oh, do you ever try to ride him? He's like, come on, let's try. And
Yeah.
so like he goes up to like the only white horse, the only one in this whole
Singular one.
field. And after playing along with Bloom's curiosity, he reveals that they're actually their horses. And Bloom, like playfully calls him an ass. Oh, and like
Yeah, like an
before,
ass.
like,
Like,
yeah, like, before he asks, like, like, do you know what's better than frolicking? And then we get Taylor's version of Wildest Dreams, and they're horseback on this white horse through these beautiful fields. Cue the magical adventure reference. Like, this is so magical.
right? Just like I love the flirtation that like we kind of see building up to it. Like the like, oh,
Yeah.
did you ever like come out here and frolic? And then Sky's
Mhm.
like no, and she's like, well, you missed out, like, or he missed
Yeah.
out. It's the way she's saying it, it's so cute because it reminds me of that scene in Magical Adventure, where
Mm.
we see Bloom and Sky at Domino and they're like kind of flirting a little bit and then they go and ride off. I actually have a
Yeah.
TikTok video side yes,
Yes,
a
side by
side by
side
side,
comparison.
and it's
Oh.
almost like directed the exact same way. Like the shots
Mhm.
are almost match for match in ways.
I love
So
it.
with just
Oh.
like how they're framed. I love that so much because it was just such a breath of fresh air. And I actually read a little bit about like, so I was trying to figure out like what does the like white horse symbolize? Like there's only one of them in
Mm.
this entire, field. So I'm trying to figure out like does it mean anything? And so I looked it up
Yeah.
and it says that they can represent like uh, a lot of different things actually, like magic, transformation, celebration of life, but there's a darker meaning as well, which
Oh, of
is kind
course
of something to
there
think
is.
about. Some death could, arise later.
Oh.
And then I found an interview with Brian Young, and he makes a really good point about this scene that it's the embodiment of teenage wish fulfillment. It's also got a bit of tragedy in it, knowing that this moment is perfect, but in the future, it's teenage love. And that is
Ooh.
just, oh my
Oh,
gosh, so
man.
sad. So good,
Yeah.
but like it's so sad at the same time. It's bittersweet. It's a lot. It's
Yes.
a lot all at
It
once.
it is a lot. And also, do you know too that in season not se- well, yeah, in season 1 when they were on set, like Abby Cohen, the or is it Cowan?
I think it's Cohen, yeah.
Okay. So Abby Cohen, the actress that plays Bloom, she posted a video in season 1, like while they were filming, that like she's like, my whole life I've always dreamt of frolicking in a big green field. And she's like, and so now here I am in a big green field. And so then at the end of like at the wrap, like she
Yeah.
like finally got to frolic, like, and this was the wrap of season 1. And so the
Hmm.
fact that they wrote this in to season 2 was
Oh my
absolutely
gosh.
adorable. I loved
Yes,
that
that
for
is so
Abby.
sweet. Oh my
Like
gosh.
they gave her frolic moment like in the show. Like
It's
that's so
immortalized, and
cute.
everybody got to share that with her too now. Like,
Yes.
that's so sweet. Oh
Oh,
my
I
gosh.
know. I love
So
it.
lucky. How
I loved
special.
the whole I know, I love the whole like bond that this whole cast and like the writers and the showrunner had like together. It was just so special.
Yeah.
It like I don't think that
Irreplaceable.
truly like I don't think that there's been something like that since excuse me, since probably like the season 5 cast of the Nickelodeon dub of Winx
Yeah.
Club.
When they'd all
Like
come in and record together. Yeah.
yeah, and like they loved each other and like they would go to like
Hmm.
Nickelodeon premieres and stuff together, and like they just like were so sweet, like all of that cast together, and that was just 5 girls, like, and now we have like these 5 girls and now 6, and then also like just it's so sweet. I love
It
it.
really
I
is,
love
yeah.
like what like I said last episode, like when you like buy into it, like the Nickelodeon like main cast was bought in, like this Fate cast was bought in to Fate. I don't think to Winx Club to an extent, but to Fate for sure. So it's like I don't know, it's just like that there's magic to be had, when that
Yeah.
happens, when you're in that mindset. So
So, meanwhile, trapped within the Althea barrier, we see Stella crying in pain, just like straight up agonizing, trying to
mhm.
break through, only to be thwarted by the gem embedded in her back.
Ah,
Evil little Shabstone, like, it's
yes.
just
Oh,
awful. Beatrix, of course, the way she enters this room is just a little much. Like, I think she thought she was being playful here, but like, girl, read the room. Like, it
yeah,
was,
like it's not
yeah,
this is uncalled for
this
actually.
is a little much. And so Beatrix appears beside her, mocking her efforts with amusement. And so, like, she then asks about Sky's whereabouts because, like, Stella's just like, "Can I help you?" And she's like, "I'm looking for Sky." And Stella remains really tight-lipped. Like, she's not saying a word about anything even after
Mm-mm.
Beatrix then like brings up the fact that somebody assisted Silva's jailbreak. And so she doubles down, like Stella does, and she says, with kind of like a little bit of targeted point in her voice, well,
Mm-mm.
maybe Andreas just isn't as great as you think or maybe Andreas just isn't as great as you think he is. And so,
Yes.
like, it's then followed by a jab at how she knows how much it sucks when your parents like don't live up to your expectations. To which Beatrix is just kind of like persisting, like, do you know where he was or not? And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I saw him that afternoon, Beatrix. To quote another tortured princess, let it go.
That was that I loved that reference. It's again another like reference to Earth, but like I think it's fine, or like the first
Hmm.
world or whatever they call
Yeah.
it. But like I think it was funny because like the reach of Frozen knows no bounds.
Hmm. For
Like
real. It's
truly,
everywhere.
it's everywhere. But also, it's funny to me because here in this scene, we see the difference between Bloom and Stella. The difference
Hmm.
being Stella didn't give out shit. Like she didn't give away anything. Whereas like if Bloom was in that situation, she would have accidentally said something or accidentally like thought something which like would have made her face give away something, and like
Hmm.
Stella's
She's got
just
that
stone
royal
cold.
princess media training. Like,
Truly.
yes.
No, absolutely she does.
Yeah.
She's just better.
Yes. And I guess it's kind of like it's sad in the sense too when you think about the little Frozen reference that like
Mm,
it's kind of like her own personal hell, her own tortured castle and kingdom because
mhm.
that is her kingdom. She's on Solaria,
Yeah.
like, she's in Solaria, I guess here, but
Mhm.
like and now she can't even like say it to the people around her. She's keeping it in that, there's
Yeah.
a reason
Oh,
she can't leave the barrier. So it's just so sad.
it's
Like,
very sad. Especially if like you think of like, do you want to build a snowman?
mhm.
Oh, I can't think of it. I will cry. I will cry. um so the Winx minus Bloom and Stella fill Flora in on the fairies and specialists relationships, leaving Tara rather uneasy. um Flora playfully reminds a love cautious Aisha of the importance of romance and self discovery, which causes Tara to recluse anxiously at the thought of her own inner desires.
You can
Ooh,
really see it here
you
too.
really
She's
can.
she's just like boiling in her own mind, like,
She's
oh
like
my gosh, I
scratching to
don't
get
want to
out.
talk about this.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, great conversation for class, everybody. Like,
I know.
yes,
Come on, guys. Like, I know y'all are sitting in the very back of the classroom, but like, What
right?
are y'all doing? Like,
One
pay
of the
attention to
rare
class.
instances, yeah, we see them in class and they're not even doing their
Seriously.
work. Like,
And this is like one of the only classrooms that exist in Althea. The other places
mhm.
are at the stone circle or in the freaking infirmary or on the freaking lawn with the little IKEA benches for the specialists. Like,
Yeah,
it's just like terrible. It's so bad. I get that like they were saving budget for like visual effects, but like,
you didn't have to
come
say
on.
that much. Like,
Come on. Yeah, what's
yeah,
another room in Kilrudery Castle? Like what does that cost?
right. Shorten the transformation just slightly. Like,
Right. Like do anyway. So Flora when the bell rings, Flora suggests fixing Tara up with a scandalous hookup, to which Tara's scoff reveals some repressed feelings there, and Flora teases recalling a past incident which they both laugh about, but obviously promise to never speak of again.
the
Which I think is
lifeguard.
yes, which is so cute.
Like, oh my
Um
gosh, in front of like, I would, oh no, that story. Is it like the time that you like tried to drown so the lifeguard would save you? Like,
It's
something like
like,
that.
please, like,
Can
ixnay
we
on
let that
the
die? Like, yeah.
lifeguard lay. Yeah, like, come on.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so funny. So Tara notices how thorough Flora's lab report is, that they were just like, like they were literally just talking in class. Meanwhile, like Flora's got like this dissertation of like what they were talking about in class on her paper, and feels like a little bit inadequate. To which Flora lets like her know that like, oh, like yeah, like they had already discussed like covered this class material with a tutor years ago while she was on expedition with her parents. So Flora presents to Tara. So now that kind of it's almost like, like Flora was waiting for a moment like this to kind of like prove herself of like here like oh like here's like I know my stuff, like and by the way, here's that formula to the Eldom amalgam that I was telling you about, and like
Mhm.
urging her to pass it along to Tara's dad. But like Tara's like, I'll look over it and see if there are any negative reactions. It's like,
Right? It's also
girly,
like Flora literally waited to then try again later at a different time. Like, oh, maybe it's just not the right
with
time. I'll
like
try
more
again later.
information.
Yes. And
Yes.
it's so understanding. It shows that she's so understanding as a
Mm-hmm.
character. Like, she's like, oh my gosh, like, so
So good.
sad.
Yeah, yeah. So when Flora then says doing nothing is already a negative reaction, Tara doubles down with like her peer review of Flora's work. And Flora reassures her that she's already done it, reminding Tara that like they shared the same goal of like waking Devin up. And so Tara like walks away frustrated, disregarding Flora's request and insisting that she'll like look over the formula herself before she hands it over to her dad. Which like, it's part of me too, like as a recovering people pleaser,
Hmm.
I get where Tara's coming from with this though, because like her dad is stressed out of his mind.
Yes.
She does not need her cousin to come in and like tell her father how to do his job, this teenager, how to do his job. And like she's like anticipating like everyone's like emotions, reactions, and negative reactions, to these situations, trying to manage them, when it's like, Tara, that's not your job, babe. Like that's not like for you
Mhm.
to manage. Like you are only like responsible for yourself. Like if Flora wants to go that to your dad, like you can't help if like your dad
Yes.
has a negative reaction, or if Flora gets scolded by her father or like whatever. Like just let it happen, because like it doesn't concern you.
Plus, Devin
But
is
she
under, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Devin's under Harvey's care, so it does make sense. Like she's trying to, say like, hey, these are the powers that like in place. Like here,
Mhm.
can you do this? But of course, Tara, she's insecure, she's feeling inadequate. Hence why she
Mhm.
was like, oh, it's so thorough, like. And even Flora is just like, oh my gosh, like I had a tutor on the expedition. We covered this a few years ago. Like it's really not,
Mhm.
she's so humble about it, and like
Yeah.
she's not conceited, and
No, not at all.
it's just so heartbreaking because this right here is a big reason why what happens in this episode spirals the way it does. Had this just been brought to Harvey in the first place,
Yes, yes, though.
yeah,
See, that's the thing. If Harvey had been given Flora's paper, would he have, in his professionalism, like known, oh, and there's also like a what's it called?
an
Uh
antidote
an
just in case
antidote.
something
Yeah,
goes
there's
wrong.
also
Yeah.
exactly. So there's, like in his professional opinion, had he been given the opportunity, instead Tara is out here making assumptions and decisions on behalf of other people. Like, no, Tara, let people decide for
Mm-hmm.
themselves. Like, same thing with Tara and Riven and Flora later on too. Like, let people make
Yes.
decisions. Don't make decisions for other people. Give them the chance to
Yes.
do it themselves. Like,
And that's another thing I love about Flora is that she is willing to, give Riven a chance, regardless of like, what somebody else has said too, because
mhm.
sometimes like, just because two people don't click doesn't mean that like, they won't click with other people. I guess if like,
Right. And
yeah,
also,
everybody
like, they
clicks
might
differently.
have
So,
experienced a different version of that person in the past. Like, maybe this
mhm.
person's changed. Like, there is room for growth and character development and like
Yes,
minds and
yes,
hearts to change. So it's like,
exactly.
I understand like approaching it with caution, but also like letting your experience with that person speak for themselves. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know. It's just like, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
So then we see Musa and Aisha walking through the corridor before running into Gray, who asks Aisha if he can escort her to her dorm. Musa gives the thumbs up of approval, and the two are bonding over swimming in the hallway. Not swimming in the hallway, but swimming while they are standing in the hallway.
Swimming in the waters of love in the
Yeah,
hallway.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. But they stop just outside of the doors of the suite when Gray asks Aisha if he could see more of her in person instead of just the texts, which Aisha gets kind of dodgy about. And she's like, well, there's a lot going on, and he had,
which is true, yeah, but
it's, yeah, there is for sure. And he like addresses like their mutual like feelings for each other and asks Aisha why it feels like he's in cyber limbo, quote unquote. When she says nothing, he acknowledges her like need for space, I guess, and then like walks away. But like it's knowing what I know now about Gray,
mhm.
I'm just like,
And Aisha's almost always right. So
I
like
yes, yes.
yes, it's so true. Oh my gosh. And I wonder how this would have affected her in season 3, but like we'll wait. But like yeah, that's
Yeah.
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 It's clear she's struggling with like balancing life and then also letting people in because you know how she is. She's an academic,
Mhm.
she's sporty. She gets prickly if you get too close. So
Gets prickly if you get too close.
yeah.
Yes, though. Yeah, it does play to her character a lot, but at the same time, it's funny to see her kind of struggle with this because honestly, we kind of see that in the original Winx Club series as
Hmm.
well. Like I
Multiple
know
times.
multiple times and multiple different characters too, but
You
like
got
especially
yeah.
in Layla, like especially in
Hmm.
Layla, Aisha. I just called her Layla. Wow, I haven't done that in a while. But like, yeah, especially in like Aisha's character, like we see that a ton in the original series, which I know everyone loves to like talk about how like different the two series are, but like as you rewatch it, it becomes
Yeah.
eerily familiar in so many different ways.
Yes.
So,
And it's not the first time something has gone wrong with like, a love interest for Aisha. I can say aside from everything that we've seen in the Winx Club animated series in the comics too,
mhm.
there are quite a few. So I will say
Yeah.
like it's not surprising that there's an outcome here from this little romance adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that might
Woof.
be giving too much
More on
away,
that
but
later.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Meanwhile, back at Sky and Silva's house, Bloom and him finish their gallivanting across the field with their beautiful white horse. When Sky recognizes that like it's getting close to curfew and they need to get back to campus, but Bloom's like, "Well, wait, no, we didn't just come here to ride horses. Like, I'm on a mission, my guy."
Yeah.
Like,
Let's go inside.
yeah,
Like,
and so Sky's hesitant to enter, so he lets Bloom like go on ahead without him. When she gets in there, she's kind of just like looking around like, wow, like this is where like little Sky lived, and like looking at all this stuff. And so um when she enters in to Sky's bedroom, just out of I guess morbid curiosity, um, you know, she boop 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 boop.
oh, I think I
This
cut
is yeah,
down the
I've
entrance part to because like the scene cut here and then it like
you're
then we go
right.
back to yeah.
You're so right. You're so right. I was misremembering this
But
episode.
I
Okay.
will say in the scene when we see the outside of Silva's cottage, like kind of at sundown, it was
Hmm.
so pretty. Like
Oh, it's so pretty.
I love that shot so much. Just like
Yes.
the vibes of the other world, which is really just a backyard in Ireland, but like at the same time, like it was so nice.
Yeah,
So
it was so
like I
pretty.
remember before Fate came out, I was hoping we get something like that, and that's what we saw. So
Yes, I love it. Get even more magical content when you follow Winx Forever Podcast on social media. So back in Althea's medical bay, Sam magically disappears unseen into the wall as Rosalind and Harvey enter to check on Devon. Rosalind, still seeing no progress, declares it's time to move him to the capital. Harvey argues they owe it to Devon to investigate, but Rosalind Rosalind retorts uh that Devon's worsened under Harvey's care and is no longer his concern, which is so sad. She reveals Harvey did well about his tip off about Sebastian, um, doing it merely as leverage to keep his children safe. Rosalind walks out, promising to arrange for Devon's transfer. Sam emerges from the wall and, like, having heard like this whole conversation, is like visibly concerned.
yes,
Like,
he
and
already
he
can't manage his emotions, and now it's
right.
like it's just
It's
building. Like
mm-hmm.
we really see that like we see like the start to finish of like this teenage boy to becoming like killer energy. Like, whoa there, killer.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, no, for
yeah.
real though. Oof, it's crazy. And like the way that she blamed his like worsening, like Devon's like getting worse, like on Harvey is like absolutely
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Like it's
Yes.
when she absolutely knows where he came from and what was happening
Yes.
to him.
Yes. It's
Like,
diabolical. Like she knows exactly
uh
what is wrong with this student, and she's over here using it to
mm-hmm.
position Harvey in
To
the way that
get
she
him
is.
out.
Yeah, and to
Yeah.
also get information out of him too. Like
Mm-hmm.
while she's at it, like that's exactly why he gave info.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's why Andreas went to go pop in on Sebastian. Like
mm-hmm.
that, yeah, I didn't catch that either, like the first time around. Like that completely like just like went over my head, but like that's sad. Like
Right.
oh, I honestly like I would be like ready to leave Althea as well. Like there are other magic schools that are not
Mm-hmm.
run by a psychopath. Like let's go.
Yes.
Like oh my gosh.
So then we get to the next scene, and it's on Riven's bed. The trio discusses Andreas's outburst at Dane. By the trio, I mean like Beatrix, Dane, and Riven, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
like the trio. Beatrix, while not condoning his behavior, explains that it's due to stress about Silva. Dane assures them he's fine, but like just as like he says that, Andreas texts him and Riven about a
Mhm.
lead on Silva, prompting them to leave for a mission. So they're just like, sorry, Beatrix, we gotta go. Uh,
Yep.
Beatrix like points to her cheek playfully, she's all
Mhm.
like
Give me a kiss before
tapping
you
it,
go. Yeah.
right? And then
So cute.
Riven does it, and then he like, he and Dane exit, and her smile though, like
Mhm.
it is a complete 180 with Beatrix. The moment they leave the room, she jumps out of bed and she starts
Yep.
looking through Sky's belongings. And
Oh.
so, like, she's just digging through his closet, and then she stops for a minute because do you want to jump in on this, because I feel like this is
Yeah, I don't understand. She like stops like rifling through his like clothes for a minute and it's like he folds his pants. Fuck me. Like what does that mean? What does that
I
even mean,
I tried
Beatrix?
to figure it out. I was like, is she saying that she does it too? Is she saying that Andreas does it? Is she saying, oh, he's so bland and
Prim.
generic and
Yeah,
prim and
yeah.
proper, and you know,
And like cuz
yeah,
Riven's like the exact opposite. Riven is definitely the guy that has like clothes on the floor like and like
armpits
doesn't even pick up.
unshaven, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
totally. Like not like very unruly. And so like I can see where like and like mind you too, like Sky isn't even royalty in this iteration of the Winx story. So like in Fate, Sky's not royalty either. Like she's just like just even so like repulsed at like the idea of Sky.
Mhm.
Which like aren't we all?
Yes.
In every form, Sky is just like a big yuck.
He's just, yeah,
It's not it.
bland.
Oh my
But
gosh.
as she does this though, like right after she says this, Riven catches her in the act, and he's like asking, like, what are you doing? Like demanding an explanation. And Beatrix is like, uh wait, what'd she say? Beatrix is like, she's like, oh, I'm worried about Andreas. Like, I'm really concerned
Mm-hmm.
for his safety. Obviously talking about Rosalind, needing to know who helped Silva to like protect him. Like, she wants to just protect her dad. At least that's what
Mm-hmm.
she's saying. It's not true. She also wants to be in with Rosalind, but like,
Yes,
it
absolutely. But
seems
like
like,
there's
yeah,
levels here, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot going on. So Riven admits he doesn't know everything, confirming though that Silva did not escape alone, which was kind of his mess up, because
Mm-hmm.
he, and it's also sad for him because he trusted Beatrix with that.
I
So we're just gonna leave it at
know.
that. But he insists it wasn't Sky though. So that's like where Beatrix gets really suspicious. So her
Mm-hmm.
vibe just changes up, and she like presses for confirmation, but he saw nothing.
Yeah.
So, or no, she presses for confirmation that he saw nothing, and he hesitates for a moment, which
Mm-hmm.
again, the micro expressions coming back just like Bloom, dodges the
Mm-hmm.
question, and then leaves her with a kiss on the forehead before,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that was it.
Can
It's just like,
can we talk about real quick? Okay, so like that's twice now that and in one episode alone that someone has rifled through someone else's belongings and gotten
yes,
caught and
yes,
it's worse because of it. So like maybe the lesson here is don't go through people's shit.
yes,
It also happens next episode too with a character,
yeah,
so it's like there's a theme here.
yes. It's
Stay
just,
out of people's stuff.
yes.
Ignorance
Oh
is
my
bliss.
god. And it also
Don't do it.
shows how like they're all so much alike too. Like, they're not perfect
Yes.
people by
Yeah.
any sort of like stretch of the word. So,
Yeah.
but
That's
yeah,
so
good
funny.
point.
So back at Silva's cottage, we see the sun is setting in which um and Bloom is gazing upon the old relics of Sky's upbringing before locating the translation text in the front room. She lets the Winx group chat know that they've got the translation before entering Sky's old bedroom, where she's admiring these old trophies and medals, before picking up an old photo of Andreas holding little baby Sky. And
Mhm.
it's just so sad. And so she's then like startled by like Sky like entering and like tells her that, you know, Bloom or tells Bloom that things can't go back to normal for him because like he can't unlearn what he now knows, which like is totally fair, but like at the same time like things will never go back to normal for anyone, but like especially Sky. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy.
And that entire desk is just like a shrine to, like, relics of his hero father that he was so
Yes.
attached to, and now it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, but not even that. The fact that like he now knows that like Silva pushed so hard for Sky to think so highly of his
Hmm.
dad because Silva was riddled with guilt that he killed his father or
Hmm.
thought he killed his father. So like
Yes.
there's that layer of it too of like Sky's just got issues on both sides, which is so
Hmm.
sad, and like none of them are his fault, which is the saddest part. Like none of them, like OG Sky, like Winx Club series Sky, like a lot of things are his fault. Like he
So
is the
much.
blame for so many things. That man is a bad man. But in Fate, I feel really bad for Sky because like yeah, he's like cardboard, but like at the same time, like he's not like at fault. Like this, like none of this stuff is his fault. It's all because of the adults in his life being
Yes.
shitty, and like that's not okay.
They just treat him terribly.
Yes.
Like on the
Oh my
outside, you're like, oh,
gosh.
he's just like this nice blonde guy, and no,
Yeah.
he's just
Oh.
oh,
Yeah.
he's
Who
kind of rough.
yeah, there's that there's that clip of it's like some kind of like Bratz um I'm about to make a very reach meme reference. So there's that Bratz like AI generated like clip of like them talking to Chloe like, "Oh, Chloe, why are you sad? You're naturally blonde." It's like literally
Yes,
at Sky like, "Oh, are you sad? You're
yes.
naturally blonde." Oh my gosh. But
Daddy issues.
for real, so many of them. So many daddies and so many issues. More daddies, more issues.
Yes.
More daddies, more problems. Stop. Okay, I need to stop. So Bloom relates to knowing to knowing how it feels to not to get answers to questions that you never meant to ask. Um Answers that change everything, and Sky lets her know that he's not defined or and she lets Sky know that he's not but defined by Andreas, the fake hero, or the real monster. Um and which is funny because she only addresses part of that, right? Part of that conversation. She doesn't even address the part of like, oh, and also there's a part where like your adopted dad lied to you for like 16 years. There's that also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so grabbing his hand, reminding him that he is defined by what he does and who he is, she pours her heart out, assuring him that he's kind and honest and selfless, and that he tortures himself inside so that he can be strong on the outside. And so she reassures him that, you know, she knows the real him. And, you know, before they uh lean in to make love and it fades to black, you know, whatever. There's the it's a very sweet moment for sure. And it's like the chemistry is there, like everything is fine, you know, whatever. But I don't know. I just don't think that like your childhood bedroom is the place to I don't know. Maybe
No.
I'm wrong for that, but yeah.
And yeah,
Anyway.
like especially with like the shrine right there too,
Oh
like
my
knowing that it's
god.
all a lie from Silva, like come on.
Ugh.
But I think in that moment too, Sky needed to hear Bloom like snapping back to reality and say, like, there's a lot of shitty people in your life who do a lot of really
Mhm.
bad things, but like at the same time, you're not defined by those people. You're defined by who you are, and like
Yeah.
this is who you are. I know you, like I love you. And then of course, like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, man. In Alfia's interior courtyard, aka the everything room, we see Sam on edge seeing the Solarian soldiers. Musa is sensing his anxiety and asks him, you know, what's wrong? He hesitates, you know, at first because he doesn't want to speak around like the guards. Like he's really scared that like Rosalind's spies are everywhere. And so using her magic, she kind of like calms him down and like brings down his emotional state. And so he's like, "Hey, let's like get out of here." And so he leads her into a classroom where he like tries to initiate like a makeout session when like she urges him to like, "Hey, like no, like let's talk about this. Like we can't just like keep pushing it off." Which like he, bless his heart, he doesn't know what's happening. He
Mm-mm.
doesn't know that like he's suppressing these emotions thanks to Musa. Like he's just like kind of along for the ride,
It was, yeah,
honestly.
yeah, a
Yeah,
complete
like
180.
yeah, it's so sad. So suddenly they spot Tara across the room, and Tara seemingly has been there all day. Um, she proposes using Flora's Elwyn amalgam to wake up Devon, suggesting that it could wake him as an adrenalizer, but it could also be very lethal. So
Yes.
there's that little tidbit of information, which like good on like Tara of like checking her like cousin's work, because like that is like a pretty like big like thing you probably need to
Hmm.
worry about. So
But she also
yeah.
should have given it to Harvey because at the
Also should have given
same,
it to Harvey.
yeah, like, Harvey
Mm-hmm.
could have had it figured out. Like, we don't know. We really don't know, but it's clear
Yeah.
that that's what Flora wanted. And Tara, trying like she was feeling inadequate about how thorough her work was,
Mm-hmm.
like spends the entire day in there just like trying to figure out like what the deal is with the Eldwin amalgam. And so
Yes.
like she figures it out, but it's also at what cost? Like
Ah,
time. Like they don't have time. And so,
right.
you know, and then just seeing the effects of Musa's magic, like Sam's like I said, complete 180 was really kind of scary to see. Like on edge, and then all of a sudden, hey, let's go make out in the
I
classroom.
know.
Like,
Yeah,
oh
that's really weird.
no. Like you can see that it's just getting worse. Like,
Mhm.
and I love that slow burn that they do with that because that's like so it just really starts to boil and you see all the different
Mhm.
phases. Yeah, it's
It's really sad though because I loved Sam as a character. I
same.
really did, and I hate that they're doing all of this just to see a certain fan serviced relationship appear in this season, which we'll talk about when we get there. But
Hmm.
like, I'm just like, come on, you guys. Are we really gonna like fan service this relationship? Really?
Right.
Like, come on.
And they
Anyway,
changed,
so
yeah, they did way too much of that. At least he's here though. At
way.
least he's not dead like they had originally done. Like Sam was
Yeah,
originally supposed to die. That would have been like,
I'm
oh,
glad. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
glad they didn't
same.
kill him off. We don't want another Naboo incident.
Right? Especially on Musa in season one, that just would have been the
Oh,
worst.
girly. She's like already like been through so much. We don't need that too.
Yeah.
So,
Right after Tara says it could be lethal,
that's
we then get the
right.
cut, and we know it's Eldwin amalgam because if you look next to the vial, it says it like on the
Yes.
labelings next to it, and so I'm like,
Ugh.
okay, the ingredients she's using, that's what this is. Also, it looks so pretty, but it
Mm-hmm.
also looks really
It's
deadly.
it also
So
looks like extremely deadly. And so,
yeah.
we hear Tara murmur like even with an antidote before like the focus shifts to Flora in the medical bay, ejecting Eldon Amalgam into Devon. We then hear Musa and Tara voice concern in the classroom just as Devon's eyes snap open in terror on the medical bed.
Yeah, I
Oh,
love how they do
like,
that. Like the voice in the other room, but we're seeing what's
mm-hmm.
happening in this room, and it's so good. I love the way they do the suspense and the action and
Yeah.
just the build up.
I love it when a show like clues the audience into something before they clue like their own characters into it. Like it
Hmm.
just it yeah, like you said, the suspense it's building is like immaculate. I love it.
Same.
So Flora quickly asks him to confront his attacker by showing him a picture of the creature in Rosalind's book, to which he agrees like, yeah, that's what attacked me. But the adrenaline like kicks in and causes Devon to start to hallucinate Flora as Rosalind. And so his panic worsens. He's turning into like a full-blown like PTSD attack. And so he's like reliving like this creature's assault through these flashbacks, and it's really like it's a really scary moment.
Yeah, and Rosalind did inject him previously, and so he's like, that's why he sees
Mm.
Flora as Rosalind in that moment when he's
Mhm.
in like, the panic. It's just,
That's terrible. It's
and the
so
way that
bad.
they, yeah, the way that they just cut this and film it, it looks so good,
It's
but
so
so
incredibly
scary.
good.
Like,
Oh, like
so
you can
scary.
feel the anxiety like in the
Yes.
scene. Like you
It,
can the way that they did it, it's so good.
yeah, you just,
Yeah.
and it just, my heart breaks for Devin. Oh my gosh. Poor
I
kid. Like,
know. Right. Like he's been through so much. He's supposed to graduate this year.
yes.
Jeez. So Tara rushes into the medical bay demanding the antidote, but shockingly, Flora confesses she didn't know there was one.
If only
Um,
Harvey had, like,
oh wow. If only. Wow. Like, yeah, like call the adults. Where are the adults? Like,
hmm
what are we doing? So Devin is still reliving the attack, and he is screaming and having like trying to like get this like imaginary creature off of himself. And Tara attempts to like restrain him with vines, which triggers even more trauma flashbacks to him being tied down to a medical bed down in Rosalind's secret little East Wing lab. And so, spotting the vial of like Eldon amalgam, he relives like seeing test tubes and everything like in her like laboratory. Like this moment like must have like triggered some kind of like strength, even like a strength surge. So like he breaks free from from Tara's vines, tackling Flora, claiming he can't feel his magic before spinning out of the medical bay and through the greenhouse, which like
Oh my
there's
gosh.
it's so
Yes.
much.
And it's so
So
good though. Like he's
it
like, oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
it's a lot. There's
Because he broke
so
free. Yeah.
yeah, like
Oh.
he's like going to like go find Rosalind, no doubt. Like we
hmm
then see Sam and Musa in a tense like hallway sprint as she texts the group about Devin's whereabouts, and Aisha asks if like they've checked the greenhouse, but Tara confirms that he's not in there, and Sam is blaming himself for some reason, vowing like to be more attentive when like Musa suggests that like informing Professor Harvey, like Sam like explodes as he distrusts like even Harvey now because of like what he heard Roslyn and Harvey's conversation about like, Harvey's betrayal of Silva, like to
Yeah.
like give up that information to locate him. So like there's like this oof, there's so many things that come into play like in this scene. Like, oh, poor
This,
Sam,
yeah, and Tara
poor
would totally be like,
Flora.
well, lay off dad because dad would understand. Like if you think about it, like that's what she would have said, but he is not
Mhm.
thinking clearly because of Muse's
Mm-mm.
magic, which kind of
Yeah.
leads into, what happens next. But
Mhm.
going back to where Devin is too, like they have no clue where this like where he has bolted off to. And on top of that, Devin's like a firestorm right now because
Yes.
he essentially had to relive being strapped down and breaking out again, like that
Mhm.
second time. Like this poor kid is just like out of his mind,
Yes.
scared, running through the school trying to find Rosalind,
So sad.
magicless. Yeah,
Yeah. And like really like that's what he was doing kind of not like to not as manic as this, but like, when he broke out of Rosalind's chamber as well. So I wonder if Rosalind also like tried Eldo and amalgam on him. Like like that. And like
she
didn't
tried
have an
something on
antidote.
him.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think she sedated him for sure because Musa couldn't access his mind
Mhm.
when she was in the greenhouse with Tara and Flora who came in.
Yeah.
Like she's like, I can only feel pain. Like something was clearly blocking Devin from
Yes.
like,
Yes.
yeah,
For
she
sure.
experimented on
Like
him.
and like another mind fairy too. Like oof, man,
Yeah,
there's a
it's
lot
clear
there.
she didn't want him to talk to anybody too. So which
Yeah.
we find out a little bit later, but yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So as Aisha turns the corner, Sam panics, shoving Musa into a doorway, and Musa uses her magic to calm him down again, prompting a complete emotional shift as he like laughs off like, like, oh, thought you were a guard, like to Aisha.
Yeah.
And
It's just
like Aisha's like both like confused and concerned because she's confronting Misa like, hey, like, what was that about? Like, you just used your magic on Sam. And Misa defends it as like this, as like kind of like a stress reliever, I guess, because she even like kind of let slip in this moment, like, if I hadn't have used it on you, at the bridge the other day, like, you would have been a wreck or something. And so she kind of just like shakes it off, like, wait, what did you say? She's like, that's not the point. Like, what is the point is like, this is like not a good idea,
Hmm.
and Misa dismisses her worries, arguing that everyone needs it sometimes. Now it's nighttime at Silva's cottage, and we see Bloom and Sky are under a white sheet, staring at each other, and like admiring each other. Wow,
Just
like,
romance, like, yeah.
yeah. And so this moment is cut off abruptly by Bloom's phone buzzing, which she says she's not looking at. Which, like, okay, Bloom, like,
Hmm.
what? You're kind of in a state of emergency right now. Well, okay, and so I just thought of I just I just made like another connection, like,
Oh, really?
yes, to Wildest Dreams. See us in hindsight, tangled up with you all night, burning it down.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about I have chills. I have
Me
literal
too.
goosebumps on my arms. Oh my gosh.
That's literally in the song that played
Oh,
right before
wow.
all of this.
That's wild. Because that's literally the next verse to the song, but we don't even hear it like in
Yes.
the show, but we do
Right.
see it. So that's Lola, that is such a good catch. I think that's my favorite part of the episode. Like that's gonna be my favorite scene from here on out. Like,
Oh
oh
my
my gosh.
god. Yeah. Oh my god, that's crazy. So so yeah, so okay, so they notice Bloom's phone buzzing, to which she says she's not going to look, only to slowly change into a concerned expression as she gets up, wrapped in a sheet, and peers out the window to see that Andreas's vehicle just pulled up, and him and Dane and Ribbon are here. And like, oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Yeah, oh my gosh, the soundtrack here, it's so ominous. Like it was very like Fate season one, like when they're in the dark part of the East Wing, the abandoned East Wing, but also like Buffy the Vampire
Yes.
Slayer like vibes. Just like the instrumentation is so good. Like
Mhm.
I was feeling it. I love it so much.
It's
So
real good. It's, yeah, like, I love all of the score and the soundtrack in Fate. Like, they did, like, I don't think that we can praise it enough of how good they did with the audio in this show.
right, that six
So
channel mixing, like it's
yes, yes.
so then we pan back to like Stella and Beatrix sneaking into Rosalind's office, having a friendly little drink.
Which I think that might be a move for Beatrix. Like, you know what I mean? She did that with
Yes.
Riven in the first season, and then they got
Mm-hmm.
together. Is that like one of her moves, like on someone she's interested in? Like, oh, let's go break into the headmaster's office and drink their like liquor. Like,
Yeah. And I think we'll know by the end of this scene because of kind of what
mm.
happens here. We'll revisit that
Yes.
here because there's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
So Stella shifts the conversation to Riven, acknowledging that, like, like, hey, Beatrix, he's somewhat of a jerk, but like, he genuinely cares about you. Beatrix acknowledges his feelings, but finds them to be clawing.
Klein.
Clawing. So, like, she's
Yeah.
not really feeling Riven right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stella like encourages her to not be so guarded about this, like, hey, you can let this one go. But Beatrix is clearly frustrated by Stella's phone just like she's frustrated by the conversation, and she's like tapping
Yeah.
her glass, but she like uses that to shift her frustration onto Stella's vibrating cell phone, which is like
Mhm.
face down on Rosalind's desk. And she's just like, this has been driving me like insane. And
Uh-huh.
so she passes it to Stella, who quickly reads the Winx group chat and says shit right before opening the door
Uh-huh.
to Devin just barging through the office shouting for Rosalind. And we just see them frozen,
Yes.
alarmed before the scene cuts. But
Absolutely.
she did make a comment with Stella. I will say, I thought I wrote it in here, but I guess I didn't. Beatrix did make a comment to Stella that like, she did something, or that's why her like next move, or I don't remember exactly what it was,
Yeah.
but it was in reference to possibly ratting out Riven, which makes
Mm.
sense with what happened previously in the dorm.
Yes.
But yeah, so like she was already kind of like seeing
On the
Riven out the door
verge.
in her mind. Yeah, she
Yeah.
thought about it at
Wow.
least. So,
Dang, that's deep though. Ugh,
right.
man.
So in the greenhouse, we see Flora frantically grinding herbs. She guiltily says she would have prepared an antidote. She would have prepared an antidote had she known the full effects of the amalgam, and that she just wanted to wake Devin up. Like she's so sorry and so empathetic, and she's like taking responsibility for like
Mhm.
her, part in that, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Tara sarcastically, however, affirms, "Well, you were really successful in that, like waking him up."
Ah.
And to which like Flora just starts pleading. She was just trying to help, and that's the whole reason she's
Mhm.
even there. Okay, so this is what we're gonna get into. We're really gonna get into why Flora was out and about, but she reveals her parents informed her about Tara's father's struggles under Rosalind's rule, and she came to Althea for Tara. As Tara processes the revelation, her phone buzzes with a text from Stella about Devin's presence in Rosalind's office, to which Flora had just finished making the antidote. Like, I feel like a lot of fans were confused by this. Like, oh, well, why is, Flora transferring mid-year? Even
Yep.
Aisha was like, yeah, why is she here, right?
Uh-huh.
But essentially, if Flora's parents told her that, they've been talking to Harvey about how difficult things have been, and she came to Althea because like she heard this and came to Althea
Mhm.
for Tara, um, it's kind of safe to say that she has a gut feeling of what's going to happen in the next episode. And that's why she's there, because she knows that she may be. Yeah,
Oh.
are you kind of seeing what I'm laying down here? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
Tara out in the field with Flora just randomly coming out in the field, like saying, "Oh, hi, I'm here." Like, sounds like Harvey already knew she was showing up. It's like, obviously Harvey didn't know she was out there, but Sam
Right.
did. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't really say for sure why she was out there, but it does tell us that she showed up to Althea specifically because she probably knew that like things weren't going to go well for Harvey and Sam at Althea,
Mhm.
which we find
Yeah.
out what happens next, like next episode. But yeah, there's
Wow.
some things. So,
Yeah, no, for real though.
and like I
Wow.
heard some criticism that like, oh well, that's so outrageous that her parents would want her to show up here. Like, who would send their daughter to like a school like ruled by Rosalind?
That's true
But
though.
um earlier in the episode, Musa did say, like when they were in the hallway, or I don't remember if that's exactly where it was, she did say, "You Harveys really care about each other, huh?" And so
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense, especially with the fact that like Flora had such a wild upbringing with like her
Mhm.
background, um that like that's why she's there. She's gonna do it anyways. Like she knows
Yeah.
that she needs to be there. And so yeah, it's really a wholesome moment, which is
Mhm.
different than how the scene was originally written. Have I
Ooh.
sent it to you yet? Like I
I
don't know
don't
if
think
I have.
so.
I should send it to you because there is a casting video for back, I think it was right after season 1 had come out or before it
Mhm.
had come out. They were already casting for Flora, and they had a completely different vibe here in the greenhouse.
Wow.
um Flora was supposed to enter Alfeo with a dark secret. as to like
Mm-hmm.
why she didn't like, originally show up at Althea, and like Tara felt really abandoned by
Mm.
Flora for like so many years. And then Flora was like, well, you always said I had questionable friends. And it was just, the tension
Oh,
was very different
wow.
than what we actually saw. So,
Yeah. Dang, that's
and
crazy.
it may have even been before season one was filmed, because the character in the side talking to Flora was named Maya. So,
Oh,
yeah, so it
okay.
could have been like even earlier back. I don't know for sure when that script was done, but it does
Yeah,
exist. So,
that's wild. I'm glad that it ended up the way that it did because I think
yes.
it's a
Oh, yeah.
much better um like it resolves a lot of things. You know, like you said, it
Mhm.
resolves a lot of those questions surrounding like Flora. So I think that I like where it landed for sure.
Same. Yeah.
Back at Silva's cottage, we see Sky prompt Bloom into a hidden, like, spot underneath the floorboards, and they exchange a couple of nervous glances as Andreas enters Sky's bedroom above them. Bloom is frantically trying to silence her phone from buzzing, as she's hoping Andreas doesn't look down. Andreas approaches Sky's desk that has like pretty much that shrine to him, on his desk as his phone vibrates, which like I think is supposed to lead us to think that it is Bloom's phone vibrating, but then like the music like amplifies and then stops when like he picks up his phone, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. They're still good. Like that was Andreas's phone.
Yeah.
And so it was a call from Roslyn. And so during their conversation, he speaks of Devin waking up and escaping from the lab, which like Bloom and Sky are like, hello.
Well, let's
And
listen to everything that's
so,
going on now.
yeah.
Like,
Andreas was asking about the other students as well as if Devin had spoken to anyone. Andreas expresses concern, emphasizes they need to be present if he does speak to anyone. And so, before leaving, though, Andreas takes the picture of himself holding Sky as a baby, which,
hmm
like, I hate the guy, but like
he's still
also that
attached a
was
little bit.
I
Yeah.
know. Oh my
So it's
god.
the,
Also, we never know what happened to Sky's mom in all of
yeah,
this.
not a word.
Never. I've
Mm-mm.
never heard about that. Like, hello? Okay. Um,
But like
but
essentially from that whole shot, we hear so much. Like we hear that
yeah.
Bloom and Sky now know that Rosalind was keeping students in the
Mhm.
East Wing like laboratory, and she doesn't want Devin to speak to anybody. Like Andreas knows about the whole operation. So like they're in cahoots with each other. And it is just a huge mess. Also,
Mess.
I
It's
think
a
Bloom's
mess.
phone, like, yeah, Bloom's phone vibrating is kind of saved by Andreas's phone vibrating too, because then it's like, oh, I didn't hear anything. It was my own
Yeah.
phone. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
Which, like, a part of me wonders if he knew, like, Riven knew, right, that
hmm.
Sky and Bloom were there, and still. Anyway, but we're about to get to that. We're about to get to that.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Okay. Because I have thought about it a lot, and it keeps me up at night. Okay. So outside, Andreas informs Riven and Dane that someone was there. Like, definitely someone had been there, and that they were likely aware of Silva's whereabouts. And so as a cryptic message, he orders them to burn down the whole cottage. The whole thing, just burn it down.
It's what he says, burn it
It
down.
is
Like,
literally. And so, sharing a hesitant glance, Riven and Dane douse the building in fuel and set it ablaze. Meanwhile, trapped inside in the smoke filled crawl space, Bloom and Sky cough and struggle to breathe as Andreas watches the cottage just like burn to the ground. Um, but they're still afraid that Andreas is nearby, so Sky is like nervous to like even leave the like crawl space, much less the house yet. And they're like engulfed in flames, but Bloom is like determined to protect him. So as they, she tells him that they need to get out, and so they remove the floorboards, and this allows Bloom to crawl out first and pull Sky up. And again, they are surrounded by these flames in Sky's room, but Bloom stares at Sky and assures him that she has control of the situation as she channels her magic to keep the flames away. And
Mm-hmm.
it is very reminiscent of the fire barrier that Bloom creates for her and her dad, Mike, in Winx Club season 1, episode 13, but
Yes.
also in like the moment when they're like at Cloud Tower and like surrounded by flames too. Like she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
hear like an ominous voice in Fate, but like, like
It's
there's
her
a lot
inner
of
voice here.
fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like she's
Yeah.
and this is I love this scene because there's another half to this scene that we see a little
Mm-hmm.
bit later, but there's just this whole setup though is like so good because she takes the control because Sky's like, well, what if Andres is still here? And she's like, well, we gotta go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, let's go. Like we have to get out of here. Like, I've got this. And so I love how she takes control. And then I love that when she starts channeling her magic, she
Mm.
uses Sky and her desire to protect him, this burning heart on fire. I'm like, God forbid I say,
Literally. Yeah.
like, yeah, she's just like, I've got you. And she like anchors down with Sky and she's just like, I'm gonna do this. And she like protects the both of them. And I love that so much.
I
Like
know.
it really is so symbolic, especially like if you think back to like how Bloom was when she was, you know, being like told by her mom, like better that than some weird loner. That
Yeah.
version of Bloom, we see like on her shirt, she has a little crystal heart that kind of looks like it's in a cage.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's like, clearly like she's not really like herself yet. It's very
Mhm.
divided versus this where this is like heart on fire, like the classic Winx song, and she's just like,
Yes.
I've got this. And I love that so much. Like
Oh.
it really is such a good reference for this scene as they're,
Mhm.
burning it down. So like,
Burning
yeah,
it down. Yeah.
so good.
Wow, that's crazy. That's absolutely wild. Yeah, I think the hesitant looks that Riven and Dane exchange are literally because Riven knows that Sky and Bloom are literally in there. But he still
Does he
does it
know?
anyway. I'm pretty sure he does because then later he asks Sky about how his like field trip went or something, or like he asks like how like it was, like the sex part. Like he like literally like asks Sky. And well, we'll get into it in the next episode, I guess. But then everyone's just okay with like burning down this house, like
I
his
didn't even
childhood
catch
house.
that.
Like,
I thought that Riven had no idea because like I remember he's like Sky was just like, oh, I've got like a date with Bloom at lunch or something, or like I'm spending the day with Bloom. I don't remember if he
mhm.
said he went to Silva's house. I would have to
I can't
rewatch it, but
I can't remember either because
yeah, I
but
hope he
it's just
didn't.
I hope he didn't either, but like then
Oh,
everyone's just okay with like the fact that his friends burned down his house. I don't know.
it
Like
was
I
an
know that's
order too, but yeah, this
right.
it's so
Like
bad. Like
there's
burning
just
down your best friend's house.
so many things. So
Oh,
many
they looked
things.
so hesitant too. Even Dane looked
Ugh.
hesitant in that moment. He looked at
Yeah, and
Riven
Dane is
like,
like a dumb little person.
yeah, he doesn't want to piss off Sky any more than he already
Yeah,
has.
that's
Like,
so true. Yeah,
so yeah,
little
it's just
little Dane, jeez. Um,
troublemaker.
yeah. Ugh. So back in Rosalind's office, Devon's rage erupts as he's screaming for Rosalind. Beatrix, ready to intervene, is stopped by Stella, who trusts Tara to handle the situation. Um, and while he's tortured by flashbacks of the East Wing, Devon hallucinates Tara as Rosalind as she holds the antidote syringe. But just as Tara appears to inject the antidote, Rosalind arrives, obviously, ordering her to step away, and Devon grabs a letter opener and holds it to Rosalind's throat, demanding answers about what she did to him. And as tensions rise, Beatrix channels a defensive lightning spell, but as told by Rosalind to stand back as he like Devon was just confused. I guess. We see Devon's flashback then reveal Rosalind injecting him with something. As she then channels like her own icy blue magic into his mind, and Devon his eyes like are glowing with the same type of icy blue as like he's like receiving that like magical energy, and demands her to like get out of his head. And Tara urges Rosalind that she needs to administer this antidote, but Rosalind doubles down, telling her to stand back, and that she, as she like secretly is like diving in deeper into Devon's memories, and like witnessing the mysterious man and the terrifying creature that attacked him that night in the first episode. So overwhelmed, Devon obviously collapses, so Rosalind, is forced to stop, to which Tara checks his pulse and says that he's dead. What?
Yeah.
He died?
She says that he died. Yeah, she checks his pulse and she goes, he's dead. Like,
did I watch the right episode? What?
yes.
Wait. Why
It's
is this
wild.
not Why am I not remembering this?
Yeah, like I was shook too, because like I thought like, well, did he like really die? But then I remembered back to like the guilt too. But yeah, he died. He fell to the ground and died. And what's worse is that Rosalind didn't let go until after he had already passed out and probably died from the shock. Sad, right?
Oh
Like,
my god.
yeah.
Yeah, because Flora was like, "Oh, I just found out I'm not a murderer."
Mm-hmm.
Because Rosalind killed him? No,
That's
he
what they
comes
think.
back.
Yeah, so
Right.
he's not
He's
really
not
dead.
he's not really
But
dead.
in this moment, he
In
has
this
no
moment,
pulse.
he
Yeah,
dead.
he's
In this
dead.
moment, he is dead.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm remembering. I was like, no, he doesn't die. Okay, yes, that makes me feel so much better. Oh my god. Okay, cool. Flora, guilt stricken, stares at Rosalind when Rosalind asks what was given to Devon, and she's cut off by Tara, taking the blame, saying that she gave Devon Eldwin amalgam and she was sorry for going behind everyone's back, as she just wanted to help, recognizing that she was wrong. I see.
She's like, get out. Like, she's like,
Yeah,
really
yeah.
like, everybody
Rosalind's very
out.
calm about it. Yeah, and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "All right, leave, like get out." Urging everyone to leave the room. And as the students leave, Flora just stares back at Rosalind with like tearful eyes, and the weight of her actions just like setting in. Ugh, just like
So much. Oh my
there's a lot
gosh.
there, and like clearly I forgot that
Yes.
like Tara announced him like dead.
Mm-hmm. And it
That's
was just,
terrifying.
yeah, it's so scary because like not only is she terrified in that moment, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't make the antidote. Tara jumps in and totally takes the blame because she feels partially responsible for the
Yeah.
way things like unfolded. And in a way, she kind of is like, had she trusted Flora as like advice originally and given the formula to Professor Harvey,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this wouldn't have been the outcome. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like, it's not entirely her fault either because she still helped come up with the antidote. But
Yes.
like, it's great that they worked towards the solution to like, you can't change the past, but like, here's what we can do and like be active. We're not writing letters here. Like, we're being active. And
Yes.
of course, Rosalind lets this happen because Rosalind, it is good for Rosalind for them to think like Devon is dead, because if Devon is in the state that he is in, he hasn't spoken to anybody else.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wonder if that's why she was so calm about him, like saying everybody out. Like, it makes me wonder if she knew he
Ooh.
wasn't dead. And that kind
Mm-hmm.
of, I guess we'll find out in the next episode when she, you know, if this is addressed again. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll make more sense later.
Right. Right.
But
Oh.
yeah, it's just, oh,
Oh,
it's so
dude. Yeah.
sad.
Now I'm remembering the next episode and what all happens.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, it all just dawned on me what is about to happen in this next episode.
Yes.
Well,
Oh.
like for this rewatch, I've rewatched like this season, like probably like 2 or 3 times now, and then am
Mm-hmm.
like as I'm making notes and watching the episodes again, and still there's so much that I
Because there's so much here. It's just,
there's
yeah,
so much more
it's.
than season one, like so much
Mhm.
more, which is, gosh, just wild. Get even more magical content when you follow Winx Forever Podcast on social media. In the greenhouse, Sam is tidying up a workbench, capping vials as Harvey, enters wearily. He informs Sam that he managed to prevent Rosalind from expelling Tara, admitting that he never thought that he'd have to beg to keep her at Althea. Um, and that's when his eyes fall upon the vial of Eldwin amalgam suspended from a clamp, to which he removes his glasses, wondering if expulsion might have been a better option. Oh, that's terrible.
Right?
Harvey, clearly torn, expresses his fear that their family may no longer belong at Althea, declaring that Rosalind's actions are tearing them apart, which is so sad. And so Sam refuses this, saying Rosalind is doing that. And Harvey just like shakes his head and whispers, like, Sam, like before he, walks over to Sam and places a comforting like hand on his shoulder, drawing him in for a hug. And like Sam apologizes, acknowledging like his dad's efforts, but we just see the worried expression on his face become like, it shifts from like worry to like just absolute rage. But while reassuring Harvey he can handle things in the medical bay, sharing a smile, Harvey pats Sam on the shoulder and leaves to tidy up, but Sam is left with a determined expression on his face as he's gathering his belongings and discreetly slips a vial of Eldon amalgam into his bag, which we will definitely be seeing in a later
Oh,
episode.
this scene blows my mind though, because like, he's talking about how he had to beg Rosalind not to expel
Tara, of
Tara,
all people.
right? And what we know too, because we've already seen the next episode, we kind of know that like that's not exactly like, it's really not authentic coming from where Rosalind is. I want to talk about the vial because we
Yes.
first see the shot of the vial when it cuts away to Flora, like right before she injects Devon and like in the medical bay. And
Mhm.
we see that it says like Eldwin amalgam with the ingredients like
Mhm.
next to it. Then we get another shot of Devon seeing the vial, and it's like
Yep.
the way the camera focuses on it, it kind of
Mm.
concludes here because we see Harvey sit down. We get a little bit of focus on the vial, and he's like clearly
Ooh.
seeing the vial in the room. And then it goes back, and he's like, oh, expulsion may have been the better option. Meaning, maybe he even knew that there was an antidote. So that's why, it should have gone to Harvey in the first place because he clearly understood the gravity of what he was looking at. So,
Tell the adults. Tell the
right,
adults.
you can trust them this time, I promise.
Yes.
Like, this
Oh
is one
my
of those
gosh.
situations. But at the same time, like, yeah, the other side of that too is like Sam's like, no, we can't trust my dad. Like, oh my gosh.
There's so
It's
much.
so much. But so back in the suite, Stella uses her magic to project holograms of the translation text pages while everyone uses their phones to compare the symbols to the photos of the pages from Rosalind's book. So, they're all like working as a team in the suite. And like they're
Mhm.
all just like paired off too. Like we see the pairings of the
Yeah.
girls, which I was just like, that's so sweet. We got like Flora and Tara and Blue and Stella, and then Aisha and Musa. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
these are like OG Winx pairings here. Like
Yes.
I said, I think of Terra as kind of like Techna elements too. So
Yeah.
like I love that. I love the way they set this up. But
Me too.
Sebastian, leading the effort via video chat, explains the need to decipher the code. Bloom expresses her initial like desire to bring the text to him, but Sebastian's like, "Oh no, this method is much safer. Like you're fine." Like
Yeah.
Stella even goes on to like chime in saying like, um, Stella like reminds Bloom of the danger involved in crossing Rosalind and leaving campus, especially after what she did to Devin. Like these girls are aware that she is not
Hmm.
somebody to mess with. Like very
They like
dangerous.
all these girls think that like she straight up killed Devin.
Yeah.
Like that is what happened in front of them. They know it. They
Yep.
all saw it.
And they can't say anything because they're all terrified. Like
Right.
oh my gosh. As they compare the book pages to the translation text, Sebastian makes a breakthrough. He identifies a page as a summoning spell for the creatures. Tara inquires about the element. Tara inquires about the element, to which Sebastian clarifies it's not elemental, but ancient magic. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is a really good moment because we're seeing that there's like other types of magic in the other
Than
world
just the
too.
elements.
And
Yeah.
that's, oh, I love that. I love that so much, the way they kind of like hinted that in and like started to prepare that for later. It's so nice. Bloom, piecing things together, questions Rosalind's motive for summoning the creatures. Stella responds confused as to like, why would Rosalind attack fairies? But
Mm-hmm.
Aisha then says she recognizes the symbols signifying store and hold,
Mm-hmm.
leading Bloom to like kind of like an epiphany. It's like they're all staring at like everything that's like on these holograms, and she declares that it's something, or I should say Bloom specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Bloom declares that it's something regarding holding magic. And so they're all still like deep in thought pondering, to which Tara then says, wait, like Devin was asking for his magic back,
Mm-hmm.
solidifying Bloom's deduction. They consider that Rosalind might be summoning these creatures to steal magic from fairies to make herself stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it's also like, I want to go back to like, oh, it's safer if you don't leave. It's also safer for Sebastian because God forbid, like, Rosalind catches Sebastian. Like,
Right. Which
oh,
like we don't know yet
but it's right out of his own
anything.
playbook. So
It really
yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's kind of incredible that like no one saw it coming. Like literally no one. Like I
yeah,
was fine with like Sebastian just being like a good guy, you know? Like
hmm
I didn't need all the other all the other, but it's fine.
right.
Everything's fine. It's fine. We get dollar store Valtor later. It's fine.
Yes.
I love the mention of ancient magic. I love the design in this like book with the runes and like the creature that they then later refer to as scrapers, which is straight out of Winx Club. Like
Yep.
scrapers was literally what they called the army of darkness in season 1, like the little ones, you know, the little scrapers. Ew, I
hmm
hated them. I
And
hated
they
them. So I
morph
hate
into
them
like the
now.
bigger creature. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They like
gross.
blend together. Oh, it's just gross.
Eh, so disgusting. In the 4 Kids dub, they're literally made out of like decaying rot. Like that's gross. That's
The army of
disgusting.
decay. Yeah, it's just
Ew.
nasty.
Oh. So, returning to her office, Rosalind addresses Andreas, Riven, Dane, and Beatrix awaiting her. Andreas reports no concrete evidence, or no concrete advances on finding Silva. When we briefly cut back to the Wink Suite, where Bloom concludes that Rosalind let Devon die to prevent them from discovering the truth. And that's when Stella voices her confusion, considering Rosalind, already has immense power, and Sebastian like knowingly replies that power is insatiable no matter how much one possesses.
Oh, and
And
he would
so
know.
he would freaking know.
Oh
Like,
my
of
gosh.
course. Like that
So
line.
sneaky. Yeah, he's
So,
really
so
just
sneaky.
Meanwhile, in Rosalind's office, her eyes glow an icy blue as she channels her magic to strangle Andreas and the specialist. A guilt-stricken Beatrix witnesses air vapor leave Andreas's lungs as they share a look at each other, to which she desperately steps forward, like clearly just
Mhm.
in distress, saying, Riven knows something.
Yeah, yeah.
Rosalind's like continuing to strangle him. Like, she's not
Not
stopping
going
just because
anywhere.
Beatrix
Yeah,
said this. And
yeah.
so Beatrix panics and adds that it's something about who helped Silva escape, but he just won't say what, which
Yeah.
is true. So this kind of feeds back into the whole thing with like the fact that Beatrix and Stella, like, talking in the office earlier, she was already thinking about ratting out
This is what I'm
Riven.
gonna tell. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, so she was
This is
preparing
just the
herself.
moment.
Yeah.
Man.
Rosalind's eyes return to normal as she allows everyone to leave except for Riven. Beatrix
Of
and
course.
Riven share exchanging looks of betrayal and guilt before she exits the office. Rosalind tells Riven he's going to tell her everything he knows about Saul Silva, preparing to pry into his mind.
Mhm.
Andreas's breath vapor in this scene, we actually see it when she's using her magic. And I didn't pick up on it until I was watching the audio description and I noticed it. Like there's like a vapor, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is icy cold. Like this is freezing. So, like with what we know, like something to take note of. Rosalind has some cold elements to her magic as a fairy.
Mhm.
So yeah, just something to think about,
For later.
right?
So the last scene is we see Sky exit the bathroom in his room back at Althea because his other room, well, it's gone. His home, his childhood home, yeah, she gone. And so as he's toweling off his hair, we see Silva standing front and center. He says, Sky, and then cuts to credits. And we
Yeah,
are
it
left in
does.
suspense for the next episode.
Oh, wow.
Like, I love that he's like, yeah, it's not safe for me here. Let's go back to Althea, where
Yeah,
it's
Sky would love to
definitely
see
not
me.
safe.
Like, oh my gosh.
Oh, like, where does he, like, so funny. Like,
Sometimes you just got to do that, though. You got to confront, your demons. So,
yeah, I guess. It's just like, Sky's not gonna listen to him though. Sky let
mm,
his whole house, his whole childhood house burn down, and like didn't even like try to stop it. And like I think that Bloom probably could have stopped it, but like if they had stopped it, it would have looked suspicious if Andreas
mhm.
and Riven and Dane were still there. So it's
Yeah,
like it was a terrible situation all the way around.
really. Like,
But that is the end of season 2, episode 2. Wow, we are
wow,
making
we
our
got
way
through it.
through the
Yep.
season. Yeah, this is crazy. Um, I do want to kind of talk about our fate forever moment of this episode. So Dane, do you have a fate forever moment, something that really reminded you of the original series or something that like you just absolutely loved? Like, let's hear it.
The wildest dreams thing. Like, if the Swifties find out about this, if they find out about the context of this scene and how it all unfolds, I swear, like, oh my gosh, like it's so good. It's
Mhm.
so good. They did
It's
such a
so
good
good.
job with that.
I
So,
feel like they only picked it for that line that they didn't even use in the scene in the song. Like it's
mhm.
very Taylor Swift of them to have done that.
Yeah, it's everything. It's just all of it. And on top of the fact that like the cliche of like, oh, wildest dreams in the background and there's a horse, like you
It's
think
perfect.
you think until
Yeah.
you watch the rest of it and it's like, oh
Oh,
my gosh, like props to Brian
absolutely
Young for
insane.
that, by the way. Like he fought hard to get that song in the show. Like I
Oh,
was
for
reading through, like,
sure.
yeah, he had to like write a letter and everything to like Taylor Swift's management. Yeah, it was a lot. So
He's like, "Hey
I
Taylor, did you ever watch print or did you ever watch Vampire Diaries? Yeah, that was me. Can I have your song?"
like we need this. And they were even talking like we don't have a budget for this, but they made it happen. So
Wow.
That's amazing.
That
But
that is probably where episode 8 went to. Like, was that song budget?
yeah,
Like, that's why we didn't get the extra episode.
unless they were super generous with it and we're just like, well, sure, we love it. Like, who
Maybe.
knows?
Oh,
Who
who
knows?
knows?
Yeah.
Is Taylor Swift secretly a Winxer? Wait. Wait.
Maybe. Maybe she's so generous though, with like what she does. So I wouldn't be
Didn't
surprised if, you know.
didn't they do a Winx version of her for her Speak Now re-release?
Yes, they did. They did. I remember that. Like they had
This is
drawn
getting
her.
suspicious.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's a sweet
Hmm.
little nod to her.
Yeah.
So, and I
Oh.
just have more of an appreciation for this scene and like because that was the director's cut too. Like there's
Yeah.
another cut without it that we haven't seen, but like
Wow.
yeah.
I think for me, I that's a close one for sure. Like, and I love that like we figured that out like this like in the moment. That's so fun. I think that for me though, it's gonna be like when they're all in the Wink suite together, like figuring it out, like with the hologram of like Stella's magic and like with the book, like that is very Winx to me. Like that moment is very cute and like just like uncovering the dark secrets of like their enemy, like
Right.
that's Winx Club.
It
Like, oh
really
my
is. The
gosh.
teamwork,
Yeah.
the solving the kind of the mystery, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I love the projections too. Like, I think it's Stella's
Mhm.
light magic that's like doing that, but
Yeah. I
it
would
was
hope
so
so.
cool.
I would hope
Yeah,
so. I would hope that's the case and not that like they can only do holograms for books and not for like people. Like
yeah,
because why was someone carrying Sebastian around on a Zoom call? Like that was so dumb. That was the only part of the episode I hated. I'm like, guys, you
yeah.
are
We'll just use our
magic.
laptop. Like,
I know. Like not even your fault. Like I don't know. It's just goofy. Um yeah, so a little bit of trivia for this episode. So we know that every episode in season 2 is titled something from like something having to do with like magic. Like so it's like usually like a song lyric or a reference to a poem or like a some kind of media that is having to do with magic. So this episode's title, which is Taken by the Wind, is a reference to a Fleetwood Mac song, Rhiannon, that is a song about a witch from a Welsh myth, which
oh,
isn't that crazy?
that is
Like,
wild. Like,
I love like the little Easter eggs and the things like that, like for these because it's really cute. Like, there's a lot of like Winx Club, the 4 Kids dub of Winx Club did a lot of that in like their naming of titles for episodes. Like I really appreciate the effort that like they're even going to in Fate for the titles. Like it's just so cute. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and for listening to me and Dane just gush over Fate. That's gonna be, spoiler alert, it's gonna be this whole series. So if you want to hear more, tune in next time as we uncover all of the Fate Forever moments in season 2, episode 3. So see you next time. Thanks so much for listening.